closed session went just a bit longer than expected. We'll be starting in just a minute. We ready? All right, I'm going to call to order our regular City Council meeting of April 1st. Our invocation from Miss Vicki Lopez from the Center for Spiritual Living.
Divine presence, infinite intelligence, and source of all good. We come together in this sacred moment, recognizing the one power that flows through all life. We acknowledge that we are each vessels of wisdom, guided by a higher intelligence that seeks only the highest good for our community. We affirm that this meeting is filled with clarity, respect, and cooperation. May each voice be heard with openness, and may every decision be made with wisdom, integrity, and love. We know that the energy of unity and progress moves through this council, inspiring solutions that uplift and serve all. We call forth divine insight to guide our discussions, compassion to strengthen our understanding, and courage to act with fairness and justice. As we work together for the greater good, we trust that Spirit is at work, harmonizing all things for the benefit of the city of Chico and its people. With gratitude, we release this word, knowing it is already unfolding in perfect order. And so it is. Amen.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. Rise. Salute and pledge. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Okay, Councilmember Goldstein.
Here.
Councilmember Hawley.
Here.
Councilmember O'Brien.
Here.
Councilmember Van Overbeck.
Here.
Councilmember Winslow.
Here.
Vice Mayor Bennett.
Here.
Mayor Reynolds.
Here. Speaker card announcement. Anyone wishing to address the council on any matters listed on the agenda should first complete a speaker card found at the back of the chamber. Once completed, turn your cards into the city clerk. The speaker cards are taken in the order they are received. Once the first speaker begins, no additional cards will be taken. Persons demonstrating rude, boisterous, speaking on matters outside the jurisdiction of the City Council, or engaging in otherwise disruptive behavior will be called to order by the chair. If such conduct continues, the chair may call a recess requesting the removal of such persons from the council chambers, adjourn the meeting, and/or take some other appropriate action. City Attorney, can report out from closed session.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council. Earlier this evening, the City Council recessed in closed session on 4 items. For items 2.1, 2.2, and 2.4, the City Council was briefed. Direction was provided. No final action was taken on those items. For item 2.3, the City Council did begin discussions. We did not complete. The plan is to recess at the first break and reconvene into closed session to continue the closed session discussion on that item. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Consent agenda. All matters on the consent agenda are considered routine in nature and can therefore be enacted with one motion. Do we have any speakers?
We do not.
All right. Any council disqualifications? No. No? All right. Consider a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Get a motion and a second?
Okay. That was a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as read, and it included ordinance. Hold on one second. Let me grab the title of that when I clicked into the motion. Ordinance of the City of Chico amending Chapter 1.14 to the City of Chico Municipal Code, adding additional conditions of real property constituting a nuisance related to missing and boarded up doors and windows. Final reading and adoption. Okay. Okay. Councilmember Goldstein?
Aye.
Councilmember Hawley?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien?
Yes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck?
Yes.
Councilmember Winslow?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
Yes.
Mayor Reynolds?
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
All right. Public comment. Members of the public may address the council at this time on any matters not already listed on the agenda and within the jurisdiction's authority. The council cannot take any action at this meeting or request made under this section of the agenda. How many speakers do we have?
We have 5.
All right. 3 minutes apiece.
All right. I'll call the first 2 speakers, and if you can line up in the middle aisle. Vic S., followed by Aurelia Lopez. Go ahead and approach. Yes, come up to the microphone, and if you can move it down closer to you, that would be great.
Hi, everybody. Happy April Fool's Day also. My name is Vic. It has been over 3 months since I last attended a city council meeting regarding safety on our streets. I walk my adopted dog usually about 4 times during the day on different routes through the side streets of Palmetto and Sheridan, such as Macy, Marguerite, Mildred, Naomi, Arbutus are just a few to state. I've talked with numerous neighbors and residents on side streets, and they are also frustrated how motorists are rolling through stop signs, texting on their phones, and speeding, especially on Palmetto and Sheridan Avenue. Once again, we need to have white stripes going down middle of these roads, speed bumps if possible, and surveillance cameras, which I understand is on your agenda tonight, yay, which would capture license plates of motorists speeding and would also generate monies where motorists would have to pay for these tickets. On Sunday, 2 weeks ago, in the San Francisco Chronicle, I was excited to read, "Speed cameras looking to save lives." Move marked San Francisco's most aggressive attempt to change drivers' behavior, where they are putting up surveillance cameras and generating monies throughout, and also to help pay for all of these. I was ecstatic to read that the city council here tees up parking cameras. Yay. It says councilors will resume a discussion and continue the process of installing cameras, which I was ecstatic to read about, and I honestly do hope it goes through because safety should be our #1 consideration in this community. I thank you for your time. Let your smiles be an umbrella for somebody on a rainy day, and enjoy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Aurelia Lopez, followed by Uriel Lopez.
Hi, good evening. My name is Aurelia Lopez, and this is my husband, Uriel Lopez. We are owners of 1017 Francis Drive in Chico, California, 95973. We recently connected to sewer. We had septic, so we did connection to sewer. And
Aurelia, can you pull down the microphone so people
Sorry.
can hear you? Okay, thank you.
should I repeat what
No,
I
you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. And what are we?
And we would like to put them in the property taxes.
We would like to put the remaining of the balance in our property taxes.
Okay, what we can do is refer you over to somebody on staff that can help you with that. This is just for you to make a comment to us. We can't, I can't really give you the information from here.
Well,
but we'll
actually,
make sure to,
if I could, Mayor,
Yeah.
you approved it in the consent agenda.
Okay.
So it has been approved.
okay, so that was a comment for, okay,
Congratulations. I wasn't too sure what I had
it's taken
to
care
do.
of.
Thank you so much for your time. Have a good night.
All right. Michelle Jordan, followed by Rebecca Galern.
Hello. I decided to come down here because I saw an article in the Enterprise Record on Saturday about the tree maintenance and that they're going to be trimming over 500 trees, trimming the canopy. And I hadn't heard about it at all. I'm in the park all the time. I'm a runner. I'm not afraid of the trees falling down. They fall down naturally, and we have great maintenance in the park. The trees fall down. If they're on the roadway, they get cleared away, and I find it to be prompt and great. What I'm concerned about is that over 500 trees are going to be pruned, the canopy, and we need that shade. The raptors are in the nests right now. The birds are in their nests. It's terrible timing. We aren't like the national and state forests where they had no maintenance whatsoever over the years. We have great maintenance. I really don't understand why we would be doing this to our beautiful lower Bidwell. And it's going to be super expensive, I imagine. I'm sure you must have discussed it. I don't know how I totally missed it, because I usually follow things in the park. But the goats can get the understory. It isn't the trees that cause the fire. It's when you don't have clearing out, which is what has been so controversial with the state and national forests. So I just want to say that. I don't think people know about it, though somehow it's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca Galern.
Hello. This is my first town hall meeting. I'm a Chico alum, but I have moved back recently. I'm here to kind of speak about our representative, Doug Lamatha, and to see what we can do to make sure that he is representing our county correctly. Specifically, I would like to point out his sponsorship of H.R. 2202, which would remove taxpayer funding towards gender-affirming health care.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
What? I believe that gender-affirming health care is life-saving health care. Transgender Remembrance Day was yesterday.
Bills that are happening in the federal government are not city, and so as I read in the beginning, this is something that needs to be
Is
local
there a
to
way
the
that
city.
we, as you
He
guys
has an
being
office
our
here in town and has a
representatives,
local
do you communicate with him or tell them what your constituents are telling you?
Absolutely. So you can send us an email and we can forward that to you, and we can forward you his
Sounds great.
reps
Thank you so much.
information also.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so Mayor, we have one last speaker, Kelly Lesser, and I apologize because it is confusing. The boarded up buildings ordinance was actually on consent, but she has asked that she speak on the parking meters, which is down under regular business, and so we missed her for that item. Or would you be willing to take her comments under public comment? Okay, so Kelly Lesser, if you could come up and speak whatever you wanted to say about the boarded up buildings in the downtown area.
Hi, I'm the owner of Urban Couture, a local business owner. I'm sorry if I missed where I should.
No, it's okay. It is confusing.
Okay.
Okay.
I just wanted to give my opinion on the support of the free hour of parking. I know that.
Okay, so you actually, that item is still coming before us, but you had also said you wanted to talk about boarded up business in the businesses.
Boarded up business buildings, the ordinance moving forward on addressing those. I think that would be a wonderful idea because it already looks a little concerning downtown with other situations, and having up boarded buildings that are constantly getting hit with graffiti. It just kind of sets a different vibe for downtown. And I think if those things were addressed, it would help maybe the community feel a little bit safer coming downtown. That as a business owner, I know that those are concerns, for a lot of us. And it does impact us and the rest of the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And that is it for public comment.
For public comment. Thank you. All right, public hearings. Mr. Brendan Ottomany, we have 4.1 hearing of ordering a formation of a maintenance district A53, Orchard Creek Estates subdivision.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council members. Item 4.1 is requesting the formation of CMD A53. So a condition of approval for a new subdivision, approval of a final subdivision map requires the property owner to have a means to have ongoing maintenance of the facilities built that will be owned and maintained by the city. So our mechanism to do that is maintenance districts. So this maintenance district would effectively provide that funding mechanism in perpetuity, assessed through property taxes. That concludes my report. I'm available for any questions.
All right, do we have any questions from council before we go to public? No? All right. Do we have any speakers?
No.
Okay. We're going to open the public hearing. Sorry.
It's okay.
Now, do we have any speakers?
No, we still don't.
We will close the public hearing. Do we have any further questions from council? If not, I'll consider a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
All right. We have a first motion and a second.
Okay, Councilmember Goldstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Hawley.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien.
Yes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck.
Yes.
Councilmember Winslow.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett.
Yes.
Mayor Reynolds.
Aye.
The motion carried 7-0.
All right. Our second hearing is for Code Amendment 24-2, General Plan Amendment 20-01, Rezone 20-01, Architectural Review, Hubbard Apartments, southwest corner of Ceres and Lassen. And I have Tina Wilson, Associate Planner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Reynolds, Vice Mayor Bennett, and Council. Good evening. If I could have a moment just to pull up my presentation, I'll get started here shortly. Thank you very much. So it's with a bit of sadness, honestly, that I find myself here. Because typically, I'm here recommending approval of a project. I strive, and I know my fellow colleagues in planning always strive to find a way forward to recommend approval of a project. We're not here to deny projects. That's not what we do as planners. That's not our profession. And I want to begin with that because I want people to have an understanding of what we do. This is a code amendment, general plan amendment, rezone, and architectural review. It's very unique that we're here today. The project site is at Ceres and Lassen, southwest corner. The zoning is OR, and the focus of my presentation today is not to go over the entire written report. I'm going to focus on a couple items because I want us to hone in on the real issues here and why we're recommending denial of this particular project and why all of the bodies that we've gone before with this project are also unanimously recommending denial as well. The main issues here are safety, the airport overflight overlay zones. This particular property is in mainly the B1, but also a little bit of B2. And this is for safety. It is in direct line of the runway at the Chico Regional Airport, which we're trying to obtain carrier service for. So what's at stake? Here on this slide, you'll see that the project site is about a little over a mile away from the end of the main runway. It's a 2-acre site. And yes, there's development surrounding it. The issue here is we have overlay zones for both airports in town. There's a small airport, and then there's the Chico Regional Airport, but the applicant is recommending code amendments that completely eliminate our airport overflight overlays, which that's what protects our airport and our airport compatibility overall. That's what makes us consistent with the Butte County Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. It's all of our airport safety just gone. It really just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any planning sense. So you'll see here in this aerial, this is the runway. Here's the site. Yeah, it's surrounded by some development. There are other things that can be built here. The issue is it's a 2-acre site. There's no way with a AOB1 or AOB2 to get to the density that's allowed in B1 or B2. You can only have an AOB1, 1 unit per 10 acres. B2, 1 unit per 5 acres. It doesn't work. So it's not possible. So there are other options. We welcome working with the developer on other options. This is another slide showing the other areas. These are worked on by airport engineers. This shows really critical safety infrastructure. that's important to maintain. These are the following people and groups that have looked at this project up to this point. And again, it's with a heavy heart, honestly, that we're here recommending denial. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, so we have 10 minutes for council discussion and or question for staff. Mr. Van Overbeck?
So, Ms. Wilson, I went out to the site a few days ago, and between the site and the airport is an Enloe facility directly across the street on Lassen, and then behind that is a law school. Kitty Corner is a church to the northeast. There's an apartment complex on the other side of Ceres, right across the street. There are single-family houses to the south, and I don't know what's on the west side. I thought they were houses, but it doesn't look like it from the aerial. So, given that this is surrounded by development, and in some cases fairly dense development, why is, and I understand the problems with the code, I'm struggling to understand why this is building apartments on this site are a problem.
It's because of the type of use that's being proposed. So other uses would be allowed at this location. It's the multifamily.
But there's
density.
multifamily across the street.
That particular location might not be in the B2 or B1. It might be in B2. It might be in a different designation. We'd have to look at that location and see what.
And if I can add, a lot of the development out there did occur prior to this plan being approved and adopted by the county in 2000. And again, with the intent that they, in many cases, we're probably looking at and seeing all the intensity and density being developed in this departure or arrival zone. So again, this is all pre the plan being in place in 2000.
So I have a question, Mayor, if I may ask. So Associate Planner Wilson sounds very formal. Tina, can you give just a couple of examples of what would be an acceptable use on that piece of property, just so I understand what that would be?
Restaurants, offices.
So there are uses that could be placed on that site and be perfectly legal and acceptable.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And just also, it is the nature of the residential and the 24/7 use of the site is a higher bar as it relates to the plan and some of the restrictions.
My question for you, Tina, or Associate Planner Wilson, is so would this site theoretically allow for lower density residential? Because one of the issues brought up was that this is too high of a density. And if the site would allow for lower density residential, I'm confused then why, what the difference would be, whether it's a few houses or 39 units.
I believe it would allow for one house.
So it's okay if the plane crashes into the one house, but not the 39? Or a restaurant. Trolley problem or something.
It allows for one house per, I think, 10 acres. So I don't even know if it would allow for
Or one house per 5 acres on B2. Councilmember Winslow. And then
Well, okay, there's a couple things. There's a lot of things out here. I was talking to staff about it. I've had, we didn't do like ex parte communications. I did talk to the applicant about it. So one thing is it's in B1 and B2, right? B1 allows for half the density of B2, which is still nothing practically. B2, I learned, is just that portion of B2 is actually a ditch. Is that correct? So it's not really it's not usable piece of property, what is within the B2 overlay.
Right.
And so that we understand, because so we can say that like this is within, like the code says this is the density that's allowed, and that's but the reason why is because of this safety concerns around the airport overfly zone, right? And just so that we can be clear about what that is, because there's multiple things, noise and different components of safety. The airport the report to the Airport Land Use Compatibility Commission said that the project would not penetrate the airspace protection surface at the project site, would not cause a physical hazard to overhead aircraft. So it's not saying that the building's too high. In fact, yeah, there are apartments across the street. There are trees that are much higher. Nor does it say that noise is really an issue. The community noise equivalent level is 60, which is what's considered acceptable outside. And then you mitigate with the building structure. So what it is that to minimize the impacts of a crash landing. That's the whole purpose, and that's of this of its zoning and this overlay that limits any kind of residential development practically there.
Okay.
I don't believe the only issue is related to just safety. I mean, then you're looking at this project as a one-by-one basis. It's also anticipating the entire area. And if you were to allow, excuse me, the residential uses, you would have more and more residential uses in the area. This is just a single project.
It's a bit of a slippery slope there, which actually I think is a really good point, because what's being proposed here is that we not just allow this as a one-off because it borders it, because it's adjacent to existing higher density uses, but they're proposing that we eliminate every reference to the airport overflight zone in our code entirely.
Yes.
And I think it would be helpful to explain how that became the proposal and what the engagement with city staff that allowed that to get sent. Yeah.
I can give a quick.
We got about 2 minutes left, and Councilmember Hawley also has it.
Sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
I'll just quickly, the original proposal was to have the apartment. We shared that that's not allowed in the B1 or the B2 zone or the B1 zone. And he said, well, then I'd like to change my overlay to B2. We said it's also not allowed in the B2 zone. And then he said, well, let's just get rid of all the references that would therefore be citywide to these requirements. Then we said, well, that's not consistent with our general plan. Well, then let's modify the general plan to allow it. So it was just whatever's in my way, please remove.
Councilmember Hawley.
I think I ran into a similar question as Councilmember Winslow. I understand it's a California government code violation to have inconsistent general plans and airport land use plans on a county level, but that scope of, I was just looking at the documents and all those lines through all of our code, it was very dramatic of a shift that was being requested by the builder. So is there any other leeway, any other route that we can have moving forward with a higher density than what's currently allowed?
I would suggest it would probably be a pretty high bar. These plans are prepared by professionals intending to protect the long-term longevity and operations of airports, both safety and noise, and their ultimate build-outs. So the county's the one that approved the plan. There was a time where we were not compliant with that plan, and I think the staff report speaks to some of the concerns related to if we're not consistent with the plan, then all development proposals moving forward that fall within those areas have to go through an extra step. They have to be referred to them for a compatibility determination. So we have worked very carefully with the ALUC and the Airport Commission staff on making, there are some areas in the B2 zone. We created an infill list where there would be some allowed density as long as they were consistent with other projects built out in that area following the Camp Fire when housing was so dire, as it still is. But at that time, we worked with them on an interpretation of how to determine the median density to get higher density. But again, it was a very involved process for a small nuance. For them to just make a cataclysmic shift and say, we are now going to allow normal densities in the B2 zone consistent with city zoning, I think would be a far stretch. Something we could request, and we have, as part of any future update of their airport land use compatibility plan. Maybe we get a second bite of the apple on infill in the B2 zone, but I don't think they'd have any interest in the B1, as it is literally that approach zone.
Thank you.
So that's our time on that. Thank you so much. We're going to open the public hearing.
Mayor Reynolds, and I apologize because we didn't include ex parte communications on the agenda. So if you could ask if anyone else has anything to
announce. Any ex parte communications?
No.
No. I know the applicant and happened to go to high school with him, and I did ask a quick question over the telephone, and we did speak about one matter on the that I had on one of his things that he sent to us in email, but that's it. So that's my own.
Okay.
All right. Now we will go to the appellant. Has 15 minutes. Additional speakers we will take for 30 minutes, and then rebuttal, if granted, will be for 3 minutes, just so you all know kind of how this works. So, Mr. Hubbard.
Madam Mayor and Honorable Council, I'm here. You've seen the map. This should be high-density, multifamily infill, and it is permitted under ALUC, under B2. Now, under normal circumstances, my property would be B2. But in 2017, when the ALUC compatibility plan was passed, they based the contours of the zones on 141,000 flights a year. Now, by comparison, the Burbank International Airport, and you can see the numbers for yourself. It's the 6th page of the packet that I sent you. You'll see Hollywood Burbank Airport has 131,000 flights. Sacramento International Airport, when this was passed, 110,000 flights. Santa Barbara, 102. Fresno, 97. Chico, when Chico had commuter service, the year before it was terminated, 49,000 flights. At the time the ALUC was passed, Chico had 34,000 flights. Smaller flights, fewer flights means smaller zones. I should have had a zone markedly lower. And so I'm not opposed to flight zones. I think flight zones are necessary. Matter of fact, I think they're required by the law. What I oppose is flight zones that prevent me from adding high-density housing when we need it. You can't fight homelessness and oppose homes. And so unless you have any questions for me, I'll reserve the rest of my time. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any speakers?
We have 2 additional, Norm Rosini, followed by Rebecca Galern.
Good evening. My name is Norm Rosine, and I was the chair of the ALUC when the zones were created. So I'm happy to answer questions, but I would like to address Mr. Hubbard's last statement, which was fewer flights means smaller zones. That's not true at all. The zones were created based on safety and noise contours. The noise and safety maps were studied, and statistically, they don't come just from Chico, they come from airports all across the country, because when you have a runway, the traffic pattern for, say, Reno is very similar to the traffic pattern at Chico. Despite the number of flights, despite the kinds of aircraft, the pilots are still doing the same thing. And so the altitudes that they fly and the directions that they fly, you can statistically look and say, okay, where is the highest likelihood of safety issues or crashes? It happens to be the accident scatter is right off the edge of the runway, both on approach to landing and on takeoff. That's when aircraft have the most problems. This location for the project is right there, okay? To address Tom's question about, well, there's already apartments there and Enloe is there, that was mostly pre-existing development. So when we looked and developed our plan in 2000, we were saying, what can we do right now? And we had 15 public hearings, so there was plenty of public input to say, oh, I want to do this project, I want to do this project. And we accommodated all of those needs at the time. But sooner or later, you have to, if you're going to protect your airport, you have to come down with a plan, and you can't just infill all around it. At the time, in the 90s, that we were working on this plan, late 90s, we were losing an airport every week in the United States. 50 a year were going away, mostly because of residential encroachment. And that's the problem with airports. It's not just safety. The planner's right, safety is important, but noise is the big killer of airports. Pretty soon people start complaining. They get worried when they see planes flying over. When I was on the ALEC, we had complaints every month from someone who wanted us to move the pattern or the aircraft were too low. And if you ask Tom, they still get complaints. So if you're going to protect the asset that you have, which is Chico Regional Airport, which you're never going to be able to build another airport. The last airport in California, I think, was Rio Vista 20 years ago. Because of the cost and the environmental concerns, you're never going to get another airport. Your best duty is to try to protect the airport as it exists, and this is why the plan exists. And I'm happy to answer questions.
I've got a question. So, Norm, what sort of plane do you fly? I forgot.
What is our, excuse me?
What sort of aircraft do you fly?
I fly a Mooney 201.
Okay. And so when you're on final, what is, as a percentage, what is your glide slope when you're coming in on final?
I don't know what my percentage is, but I know that over this property, when I'm on final, I am well below 1,000 feet. And you look at it and say, well, that's a mile away from the end of the runway. Well, at 90 or 100 miles an hour, that's a few seconds. So the glides, we don't fly a glide slope. We're looking at, in my aircraft, because I don't have a percentage glide slope like an airliner might have, but I'm flying the numbers. I'm flying at an airspeed, at a certain descent rate to shoot for those numbers and end up on the numbers.
But when you're a mile out, you're 1,000 feet up is what you're saying.
I'm less than, over this, I'm on final. If I've turned base and I'm coming in on final, I'm well below 1,000 feet.
800 feet.
800, 700.
Okay.
Okay. I would also point out that the tankers going out on hot days, if you watch them, they're struggling for altitude. And, over 50% of the tanker traffic goes straight out. I looked in the numbers that were in here. 65%, I think, going out and 50% coming in are straight over. They're not turning. They're not making a turning departure or a turning arrival. They're coming straight in.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, just a second. Our last speaker is Rebecca Galern.
Hello again. I was going to remove my time, but I kind of wanted to make a quick statement. One, that if we are going to be putting low-income housing in those that are potentially like our homeless population in this location that is a risk of a bad accident, I feel like that is a bad idea. That is not ethically sound of us to put people in risk or at risk or already at risk of other sort of trauma to face further trauma. I think this plot of land could potentially be used for betterment of the community in the form of a park and or garden that would provide natural resources to the community, including fruit trees and shelter for said homeless population and nourishment for the community instead of passive income for someone else.
Thank you. That's it.
All right. Mr. Hubbard, it is your turn again if you would like to.
Does the council have any questions for me?
This is high-density housing, not low-income housing, correct?
It is high density.
Okay.
Yes, it is high density.
I was just clarifying. I thought that was my understanding of what was proposed.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's all right. I do a lot of work with the homeless. I'm king of the homeless, or mayor of Crazy Town. Take your pick. So, thank you. I'll submit it.
All right, council discussion? Does anybody?
So I will jump in if I may.
Okay, Mr. O'Brien.
So I don't want to pile on, Mr. Hubbard. I appreciate you coming forward with this project, but I just can't support it from a public safety, community safety issue, and just the concerns regarding the firefighting planes is enough for me. I'm sure staff, who did a marvelous job communicating the concerns to all of us, will be willing to discuss with the applicant, with you, Mr. Hubbard, as to other potential options for the future which this council may support. I pay attention to language, and when I hear our experts, Community Development Director, Airport Manager, City of Chico Airport Commission, City of Chico Planning Commission, Butte County Airport Land Use Commission, and Caltrans Aeronautics Division all oppose this, that means something to me, and for that reason alone, I cannot support this. There is zero ambiguity in their positions and left no room for approval, in my opinion.
Mr. Winslow?
I have like some conflicted feelings on this, and when it comes to it, what the proposal is to delete every reference to airport overfly zone, and that's just really inappropriate. If it wasn't that this is about building housing, then I could liken it to demolishing a building just to get to a yard on the other side. And I would like to think that there's a way that we can find a better use for this. What I really I'm not sure, I mean, that I understand all the rationale, but whenever it comes to putting noise and the concern that complaints about noise are going to shut down an airport, I really don't like that, because you know where we get multifamily housing, because we still have the need, we still build it somewhere, maybe less than we need, and people struggle and they sleep outside, but we still get it, and it's in the most noise-intensive areas in our city. It's almost like you can predict where multifamily housing can go by where's the most noise impact, so by the railroad track. And what happens when a train derails? We put all of this housing right next to it. We have oil trains that go by there, and we don't really have the same kind of assessment, right? I actually did an environmental assessment on a project, housing project in the B2 overflight, but was within this infill exemption. And the issue for the noise was not the planes coming somewhat overhead, it was Cohasset Road, and it was the trucks that go by there. That's what causes the noise, and this is the only place we allow it, right? And there just are these other factors. When saying no to a project doesn't make, like there are, cumulative impacts of not approving housing, and it means that we are putting housing elsewhere or we're just not getting it. And I think those are like real health impacts to look at. Again, what we have on the table here isn't just approving a project. We haven't found really like a smooth caveat in order to make this happen, so it's not something that I can support now.
Mr. Van Overbeck?
Yeah, so this is a tough one. I guess I start from the standpoint that these codes were created by very talented people, very well-meaning, very talented people. And I don't care how thoughtful and experienced and talented you are, when you create these sorts of building codes, you can't envision every eventuality. And there has to be the flexibility for situations that make sense, but maybe don't comply with the code to be able to approve them. And we can never forget that these codes exist to serve us. It's not for us to serve the code. So everybody I've heard argue against this, it all relates back to some requirement or code. This is a clear case where you have development completely surrounding the subject property, and on the east side, very high density development. The argument that it's a danger because it's close to the airport, I mean, anybody that's ever flown into San Diego, you know, your mom, or flown into LaGuardia Airport, I mean, the housing is much, much closer. As far as the encroachment argument, it's already happened. I mean, there's encroachment all around it. And so we are struggling to find suitable infill projects so that we can house our people. We have a housing crisis. We have people who can't find places to live. I don't know that in the history of Chico, there have been people who have died on final approach, but I don't know that there's ever been planes that have crashed on final approach. I don't know if there's ever been anybody that's died in a structure that was hit by a plane in the history of Chico, but you know, we got a bunch of people dying because they don't have a place to live. So yeah, I get there's danger in this, probably a lot less danger than getting in your car and going through an intersection, being potentially hit by a red light runner. So with all due respect to the people I respect who oppose this. I support it. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think if there was no development to the north, I would say okay, or the east or west, but there is. So we've already, that horse is out of the barn, and I strongly support this project.
Councilmember Hawley?
Yeah, I struggled with this quite a bit because obviously ALUC and our own community development department had very convincing letters on the risks. But we're so in dire need of this missing middle housing, and I think all of us reviewed the architectural design and saw how this fits all the boxes of the missing housing projects that we so desperately need. What's really stalling me here is our path forward. There really isn't a lot that we can do. It's kind of a slippery slope situation. If we change what this airport overlay zone means, it's going to allow for a whole lot more risk than just this one development. And I understand slippery slope fallacy is a real thing, but we have to see it how it is. And I do worry that approving this is going to be a much larger issue in the long run. However, I think we all need to take this example into consideration in the future when we're looking at major land use reforms, such as exploring form-based code, which I know that our ad hoc committee did so a couple months ago. That was a very productive conversation. But we really need to diversify our options here when this is being built out.
Councilmember Goldstein?
Thanks. Yeah, probably going to say the same things that others have said largely, but I support generally doing what it takes to ensure that we can build housing in infill areas. So when I first looked at this, it seemed, as many of us have pointed out, that this is essentially an infill area. It's adjacent to other apartments, other single-family houses, medical facilities and such. And I want to also echo what Councilmember Winslow said, that we are building multifamily housing and low-income housing largely in areas that are next to highways or arterial roads, where the people living there are not only impacted by noise pollution and air pollution from those roadways, but the way that I see it is also when you're putting people next to highways, you also have a risk of vehicles crashing into people's yards and houses, which is something we kind of take for granted. You might think it's unlikely, but I've seen cars literally flip over on 9th Street. And so we have risks everywhere. I do take it very seriously that this is in the air flight overlay zone, and so I would have concerns with approving it because of the aforementioned problems with that. So I struggle with this one, and I would love to see, if possible, for something to come back with a more clear change to its zoning, more research. I know you've already done so much, so I don't know how much further there could be to go, but without impacting the entire air flight overlay zone as was proposed.
Can I ask one question of staff, because I didn't earlier? If this, for some reason, we were able to just approve this one project and not affect the overlay zone, would or could this affect us having air flight service in the future?
I will share, first of all, that we have the airport manager here as well behind me, and he can maybe speak to that. But I want to first answer the contention that we are slaves to these codes. We have in the past have done some overrides, unique circumstances over near Ranchero Airport, something that's in the B2, not the B1, near the sea, and there was, a small subdivision, and it's like, this just does not make sense. This does not pass the straight face test, and we processed that and brought it through council. So we look at things on a case-by-case basis, and we aren't slaves to the code. I wanted to share that I don't know that you can just peel off the one. One of the points I also wanted to make tonight was the equal treatment. What's to stop the next person with the adjacent parcel to say, hey, you just did this overrides, why not me as well? And that would be reasonable for them to expect to get the same treatment from the council. And then that's the domino of effect of what then can, as one of the public speakers shared, can cause difficulty for the future of the airport. But again, I asked Tom to be here tonight, so maybe he can share some thoughts as well.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. If it's going to impact the ability for us to get air service, just building these apartments right there, I'm going to say probably not. But if it's going to impact the entire zoning area, the airline's going to want to be in an area where they know the airport's going to be sustainable, growing, expanding. I mean, it's a possibility. And it's hard to say exactly right now, yes or no, but it likely wouldn't be a good impact.
Are there more properties you think that they would just follow up that would submit an application? Because this is one that is kind of, I mean, maybe uniquely surrounded by residential uses on three sides. And it straddles the B1 and B2 boundary where if they would have applied at the right time, got the bite on the apple with this infill amendment, then they would have actually been able to build something here, well, on that back, the ditch in the back anyway, that's B2.
I heard mention that the B2 would allow this. First of all, the B2 on its own merits does not allow the project. There was an infill list that was unique and special, something I shared with Councilmember Winslow today, where sites were identified, but that was B2. This is predominantly B1. Yeah. And so that was an opportunity for the city to engage ALUC. Again, this is in the 2010 timeframe. I'm not even 100% sure, where there were areas in the B2 where they were built out. A lot of the area has been built out. It was built out in the county, and there was large open areas, opportunities that we pursued and identified to allow development where otherwise it wouldn't be. There isn't as much opportunity still out there. I mean, there are a few locations, but B1 is different than B2, and we've been talking about the approach zone in particular.
Okay, thank you. All right, consider a motion.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the resolution of the City of Chico City Council denying Code Amendment 24-02, denying General Plan Amendment 2201, denying Rezone 22.01, and denying Architectural Review 22.03, otherwise known as the Hubbard Apartments, with all due respect to Mr. Hubbard.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. My word, hold on a second. Councilmember Goldstein?
With great hesitation, aye.
Councilmember Hawley?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien?
Yes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck?
No.
Councilmember Winslow?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
Yes.
Mayor Reynolds?
No.
It carries 5-2.
All right, how long is red cameras going to take? Do we want to take a quick break? Let's power through red cameras and then we'll take a break. Request for proposal for red light camera system completed with 2 vendors responding. Chief Aldridge.
Yes.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this tonight. This request tonight was not meant to be a very long presentation for you. It was just a quick update on where we stand with the process of working through a request for proposal with the red light camera project. And so tonight, I just put together a quick little PowerPoint that does not stand up to my fellow colleague in the Public Works Division, but I do feel it's appropriate for tonight. So we recently had our request for proposal submitted through public purchase. It was out for some time. We got 2 proposals back, one from Redflex or Vera Mobility. Another was from a company called Genoptic. And I felt like once we received those back after the RFP process closed, it would be appropriate for me to remove my department from the grading process of that. And so I asked the engineering department under Brendan Ottoboni and his staff to grade that for us. They completed the grading of that, those two proposals that were submitted. And Vera Mobility came out quite a bit ahead of Genoptic. To be clear, they had received an overall score of 93. Genoptic received a score of 78. And I'm sure Director Ottoboni can speak to the level of professionalism with Vera Mobility versus that of Genoptic. So we are here tonight to say we have selected Vera Mobility as the potential organization that we'd like to go with for this project. So just some next steps. We would need to move with an award letter after tonight's meeting if you decide to move forward with this project. We would then create an insurance plan between Vera Mobility and the City of Chico, and then the writing of a contract, which would include our city attorney's office and the attorneys for Vera Mobility. So this is just an outline of what would occur once we complete that project contract. We would have a launch meeting where we would discuss the contract itself, kind of the stakeholders would get involved. At this point, I have one of the lieutenants assigned to this project once I get it beyond council's decision tonight. And then it would include Director Ottoboni and his staff, and most likely some staff members from Director Gustafson's department. Once that launch meeting is over, we would create some business rules, and what that means is what is it we're looking for in the red light violations? Are we looking for people who violate it by 2 seconds? Or are we looking for to only cite a business owner if it's a clearly marked business vehicle? Would we send notifications when it was a fire truck going through, or a police car, or an ambulance? Things of that nature. That's what a business rule is for that project. The construction rules part of it, I would have to defer to Director Ottoboni for that kind of stuff. That's outside of my wheelhouse. Then the back end roadside piece to that, again, that would be more of Director Ottoboni's wheelhouse, but I do believe that is like your construction where it's occurring and safety plans and things of that nature, correct? And then once all of that is ready and they have completed that portion of it, we would do a public outreach training to our community to let them know exactly what it is we're doing, why we're doing it. I think that's been pretty clear, how the project would, or the program would affect the community and what to expect from that program. So that is from today to that public outreach training is roughly 5 to 6 months. So we have quite a bit of time if we vote to move that forward tonight. This is the camera system here. I only put that in this slide just so you understand what it looks like at the intersections. It's not like the old cameras you saw back in the 90s or 2000s where it looked like a giant white box next to an intersection. They're very small. They blend in well to the intersections. They're not an eyesore at all. And I think that was built this way so that they're more aesthetic to the community, don't stand out, and then also, of course, they're right there so that they're not very visible for the folks who just want to keep running the red lights in town, so they'll get caught with them. I got a lot of questions about this from a couple council members, and I thought I'd go over it real quick tonight. It looks very confusing, looks very busy, but it's actually not. If you look at, say, the first the first 4 lines, that's one intersection. And you see the arrows. So the arrows indicate direction of travel, north, south, east, west. So you see there in the northbound lanes, they would put 3 cameras. Southbound lane, they would put 2 cameras that also captured a turning lane, so on and so forth throughout their list of cameras they have recommended. Now, understand, I only worked with them to identify, hey, we've got these intersections we feel are very dangerous in the city, but they actually come out and do their own analytical data on this. They do all of their own research to figure out what areas of town they feel like need the cameras the most. And since one of their models is that they guarantee the selection criteria that they've given us will generate enough revenue to pay for the cameras, they are the ones that say these are the intersections you should actually place the cameras at. If you look at the columns over past the arrows, you'll see average daily traffic. That means how many vehicles come through those intersections every single day. I'm not quite sure how they got that number, to be honest with you. I think it's on an average count, most likely, unless they sent someone out without my knowledge. And then next to that, you see constructible. That simply means that, yes, they can put a camera in that location. I removed the ones that said no, simply because there's no need for you wasting your time looking at that. If it's conditional, it just means that they need to do a little extra work in that area. So if you look at eastbound First Avenue at Esplanade, that's the 3rd one down, you'll see that it says conditional, and the condition is that they need to do some major tree trimming right there in that area. So they want to remove that that visual impairment for the camera in that intersection so they get a clear view of the vehicle coming and going through the red light. And then as you work your way down through that, you'll see right-of-way easement issues. And I believe that might be, correct me if I'm wrong, Brendan, please, but I believe that means that it may have to be on private property. Is that what that means? An easement issue? So there may be some work that needs to be done from that part. Let's see here. So just a real quick snapshot of the way the process works. So the camera would come on when the light turns, just before it turns red. It knows when it turns red. It captures the event, uploads it to what they call their back office. That's the processing of the citation. They have someone in their organization that reviews all of the images and video to make sure that, yeah, it was a violation from their standpoint. They look through the DMV database. They get the registered owner. The license plate matches that vehicle, so they confirm that, if the camera showed that it was a red Honda Accord, the registration that comes back to that license plate is registered to a, whatever year red Honda Accord. And then from there, they send it over to the police department. We review it from our side. And then once we determine that that is a good citation, we send it back to the organization or the Vera Mobility, and they have a system that sends out the notice that we would request. We can request a warning or an actual citation. They send it out. It goes through the back channel system into the court's traffic system, where it loads in those citations, and then the person can then go in and pay or dispute the citation. They can also challenge the citation at the police department, where we would have to come up with a process for them to view the video of the violation. Just so you understand how that worked. Here's a quick breakdown of some of the actual monthly system cost. Each intersection is considered a system. So as you read the the RFP that came back from Vera Mobility, they keep referring to a system. I had a meeting with them last week, and I said I wanted to know exactly what is a system. Is that a full intersection or is that a camera? When they say system, that means a camera that captures a lane. One lane is captured by one system. So as you see here, northbound Esplanade at First Avenue would capture 3 lanes of travel. That camera per month, $5,150. Likewise, all the way down the list there. So each lane essentially is $5,150 per month for a grand total of $77,250 a month. On the police department side, we did request 3 community service officers to be added to our staff, of which they would be added to our traffic unit, all 3. They would rotate through managing the red light violations, and then when they're not doing those, they would be assigned to do the lower level traffic details so that it frees up our sworn traffic officers to go out and do proactive enforcement. So we get a lot more activity out of those sworn officers in the traffic unit instead of the more clerical details that they get stuck in the office on. Those 3 community service officers have an annual cost of roughly $340,688. So Vera Mobility talks about cost neutrality. What is cost neutrality? What they are submitting to us is that due to them selecting the intersections where they want to put cameras, they guarantee us that those intersections will create enough revenue and fines that come back to the city's general fund from the court after a fine is paid. It will actually pay for itself. There are situations where, if you look at the city of Reading, worked with them starting in 2023, I think it was when this was first brought forward, and found that they were bringing in roughly $400,000 a year in those fines after the fines were paid to the court and the fees were paid to Vera Mobility. They were using the excess funds for their fleet replacement account in the city's budget. So they were buying patrol cars and whatever other vehicles that were needed for the city. If the system does not produce enough citations to cover the cost, they absorb the overage. So for an example, if our bill was $77,000 a month and through all the cameras we were only able to recoup $50,000 that month, $27,000 would be moved to the next month's required payment. If in that next month it didn't cover that full month of $77,000 plus the overage of $27,000, they would absorb the $27,000 from the month previous. That's their loss, not ours. We don't pay them for that overage. And then with the potential employee cost recovery, like I said, the fines that come back to our general fund from the court, there's a potential. I don't know. I can't even guess at that at this point. But that is their sale, is that you could possibly bring back enough fines to pay for your employee cost. And with that is an update. And so my request tonight is that you ask any questions you would like, bring up any concerns that I can answer for you so that I can get a decision from council on whether or not you would like for me to move forward with that next step.
Okay, so council member questions. I'm going to go with Ms. Hawley first.
Thank you so much for the information, Chief. I was curious on any information provided by Vera Mobility on how to work through those right-of-way easement issues, if usually they work with a property owner, what that projected cost.
There's zero out-of-pocket cost to the city, no matter what. That was a guarantee from them. They fund everything to get their cameras in your community.
Wow,
So I'm not sure if maybe they, I'm going to go back here for a second. So I know one area we removed was Mangrove at 9th Avenue. Eastbound 9th Avenue at Mangrove. So you see right there at down toward the bottom portion, it says eastbound 9th Avenue at Mangrove Avenue. That's 9th Avenue coming across Mangrove. We removed all of Mangrove going across 9th because there's a cell phone repair business there in front of S&S Produce. I'm sure you recall that. If you ever drive by there, look at the sidewalk. It literally butts up against the building, and it runs for quite a length of that sidewalk. So in their analysis, they said, hey, we can't put one right there close by. We may be able to get property owners to allow us to put it on the side of the building or in a parking lot that's close by, like S&S Produce. But they would work with those owners and most likely with Brendan to identify what that easement issue would look like.
That's great. It sounds like that would also eliminate the burden of staff time as well.
Councilmember Van Overbeck?
Chief, so just to make sure I'm clear here, so what's included in the monthly cost is their survey before installation to determine where the cameras should go, the actual cost of the installations, so the labor to put them in, the hardware, the software, the maintenance, and upgrades. What happens if somebody runs into a light pole and damages the camera? Do they replace that or do we?
It's all on them.
Okay. So we have no out-of-pocket cost.
To this point, that's what I've been told. Zero out-of-pocket cost. They manage all of the equipment, whether it be replacing it if it's damaged, if it breaks, hardware upgrades, software upgrades, any of that kind of stuff. So, you know, we're 2 years into this and they figure out they have a better camera system that they want to install because it's much more clear or it captures more violators. It's in their best interest to install those cameras because for the ones they're missing, they're not getting that potential revenue to help offset the cost.
What is the, how long do they guarantee the revenue? You said they guaranteed it initially, but presumably people, you know, the people in Chico are pretty smart. The adaptive learning process works and they'll stop running red lights when they get tickets. So we can expect the revenue to decline over time. So how long do they guarantee it?
So that's all written in the contract.
Okay. You don't remember whether it's a year or 2 years or 6 months? Or?
It's during the length of the contract.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's the whole length of the contract.
And we
so
keep
they had some issues in years past with that. I know that I've read a lot about it. And they made some changes within their organization. And so now you ensure you write that into your contract that there's no out-of-pocket if it doesn't meet its needed funds through fines.
And if there's excess revenue, we retain it?
We retain that into the general fund.
Right, right. Okay, one last question, if I may. So you said there are 3 community service officers that you've hired for this. And then I also heard there was 1 full-time equivalent community service officer necessary to review the tickets. You know, that, I mean, my calculation is you have to write 5 tickets a day per system. And so maybe that, what is that, 50 or 60 a day total? I would think 1 person could do that. And I'm wondering, why do we have 3?
Yeah, when we first kind of started talking about this project, we didn't really know how much work was involved in it. And over the past, year and a half or so that we've been looking at it, we've kind of determined that, yeah, we probably only have enough work for 1 full-time CSO just with cameras. And so our thought was, if we're trying to grow the department and grow traffic safety in our city, then here's an option for us. We could add 3 CSOs to our traffic unit, 1 dedicated directly to cameras. The other 2 would be dedicated to going out and handling those low-level traffic issues that our traffic officers are having to deal with around the city, which would free them up to then go to these locations, maybe say where there's not a red light camera, and work it from their own perspective, or deal with the complaints that we continually get about the speeders, such as our speaker tonight. And so I think that it's a great idea. I think that it's a low-cost idea. It's much cheaper than hiring an additional officer. For every one officer you hire, you could probably get close to 2 CSOs, I'd imagine. It's right around in there. So that was my idea moving forward. Definitely, I do believe, and I think my response to the council members that I responded to was, we could probably do this with one full-time dedicated CSO in our traffic unit, and that would be what they do all day. And to kind of go back, if I can, I don't know how much time I have, I'm sorry. You're correct. As we install these, the number of citations will spike. So, the same will be said for accidents. They will spike. So we have to be prepared for that. We install a camera. There's going to be signage. Someone's about to run a red light. They slam on their brakes because they don't want to run the red light, and then they get rear-ended. So in talking with Reading, they saw a huge spike in their citations and accidents. But once the community started realizing, wait a minute, these are the intersections that are dangerous intersections. They put red light cameras here. I need to stop. Their accident rates plummeted, and their citations for those intersections plummeted, which then means that the revenue that's coming in from those violations plummets. So in theory, if it does its job right, we should see a reduction in all of those 3 areas.
Councilmember Goldstein, did you want to talk now or after speakers?
Yeah, I just had one question. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. Yeah, so do we know what the contract length will be?
The recommended life is 5 years.
Okay. And what happens, so if we find that we're just not making revenue from these, can we back out of that contract before the 5 years?
I would imagine that you can, but you're going to have to pay a fee, an exit fee, an early exit fee.
Okay, and then I'm also concerned about, like, if we were losing money and we had to exit, and then we've already hired officers, and that could be a potential bad situation financially and employment-wise.
So to be clear, you're not going to lose money on the cameras. They will lose money. Where the city would potentially lose money is if we're getting revenue from the fines that's helping pay for, say, that one CSO, community service officer, and then the fines drop off. Now the city's starting to have to absorb that cost of that one employee. Say you only approve one, the city manager approves one for my budget this year and says that's what you get to run that. So as that revenue falls off, then we have to be prepared to come back and say, hey, we need supplemental funds to fund this because we're no longer generating the revenue we need.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
I just had one quick question. Warning versus citation. You said you might issue somebody a warning. Why in the world would we send anybody a warning and not just a citation? Or does everybody get one warning? Or that's just how you program it in the beginning of what we choose to do?
Sure. The first 30 days, everyone will get warnings.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. Just as a community education campaign saying, hey, here's you running through a red light. Here's your warning. Just know that on this day we're going live and you will get a citation for it. I can see some what they call the business rules I talked about. You can identify different things. So it's like if the person slammed on their brakes but they were over the limit line, sure, I would send those people a warning. They did their best to do the right thing by stopping, right? So there's some things where I could see a warning being given. The one that'll be challenging for us is when you have someone driving your car, but it's not you, and they run a red light, but you get the citation, and how do you deal with that, right?
Yeah.
So there's some ways to deal with that.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. All right, I think that's all we have up here, and we'll go to speakers, and we may have more for you after the speakers.
All right, thank you.
All right, how many speakers do we have?
We have one.
All right.
And that is Todd Jones.
It's all you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Good evening. Todd Jones here. Addressing what you just said, I got a red light ticket in Reading because I sold the car, and they gave it to me, and I've spent hours, DMV, court. Reading police finally came through. So it is not a fun process by any means. Anyway, I've heard a lot about revenue, a little bit about safety. I was looking very quickly, like Roseville, Rockland, Yuba City, Davis, Fairfield, Stockton, all got rid of their cameras, from what I understand, because it didn't work for them. I read, too, that one thing that could help with, instead of spending a lot of money on this, even though revenue is generated, is possibly tweaking the red light, have both at red light stopping. If we're truly interested in safety, having both red light stop for a second, maybe 2 seconds, and that late distracted driver zipping through is not going to run through. And that, I think, would be a nice way of preventing that. Red light cameras are never going to stop the drunk driver, the distracted driver, the people who are going to be doing that anyway. It's not going to help. I also read, too, that, and maybe this is my own personal thing, is that a lot of the tickets are given for the creeping right turn. I come to a turn, right's led, nobody's around, I'm just going to roll through, bang, I got a $500 fine. I don't know if that comes under warnings or some of the revenue enhancement ideas. I don't know, but the ideas I just heard too, cutting down trees and things like that to put up these lights. City of trees, look how many trees we've been taking down already. I think possibly tweaking the light time, I notice my time's running out, is better, I think, than just revenue enhancement. As I keep hearing, oh, we're going to make money, make money, make money. After the contract goes, they're going to take down these lights, hopefully. Now we got an eyesore, empty spot, or maybe just leave them up and fake everybody out. I don't know. That works too. I read that helps too. But anyway, I'm not in favor of these for the reasons I mentioned, especially when you don't own the car. Thank you.
Thank you. That is it.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Winslow?
There's a couple things out of that comment that I want to refer to. One is that we've had a number of meetings about this now, going back to summer 23, I think, and the whole time, I feel like we've all been consistent. The point of this is it's not generating revenue. We're talking about offsetting the cost of it, and the point of it's not to like catch people doing things like accidentally, like a creeping right turn. And so we have the ability to get that kind of direction. Given the fact that we're guaranteed to not be paying out of pocket for these cameras, it makes a lot of sense for us to say we're going to set, I wouldn't say like a high bar, but we're looking to stop people from doing things that are blatantly unsafe, not people who are making little mistakes, like not coming to a full stop before a turn whenever nobody's put in danger. The other thing was mentioned about intersection improvements, and we have some intersection improvements going on along those lines. I wonder if Mr. Ottoboni, you wouldn't mind like just quickly explaining.
Are you talking about the SS4A grant that we received?
That sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah, so we received a grant to mostly focus on pedestrian signal improvements throughout the city. So we're still waiting on the grant award for that. So we're probably 2 years out from really implementing that. But we've been engaged with the police department and Chief Aldridge through this process, and fully support it.
Yeah, and there's a couple of those, like Broadway and First has the pedestrian signal and goes first. Caltrans have been installing them. I imagine that would reduce T-bones because you don't have people crossing the intersection at the same time, cars anyway. Yeah.
Vice Mayor Bennett.
So I never pull the microphone forward, so I'm going to do it tonight. So I want to thank you. I had quite a few questions for you. My biggest concern, as I said in one of the emails, was I was scared to death about the cost. I did not know that it was going to be guaranteed revenue from them, and they were going to pay for everything, which makes a huge difference. Otherwise, I was wondering, where's the money going to come from? And I'm concerned about the CSOs. You need more people. You can find a place for them. So if it ends up that you've got a few extra people, good. That's good. That's the way it should be. And lastly, our whole, and I'm going to steal my Councilor Brian's thunder here, our number one goal is public safety. And this is public safety. This is going to make a big, big difference in Chico with all those people that just don't pay attention for whatever reason, and they'll now have to write a check, and it probably will hit them pretty hard. At least I hope so. So I think this is great. Thank you very much for your work and the work of your colleagues. I'm fully in support. Thank you.
So I want to thank, if I may, real quick, I want to thank Councilmember Van Overbeck for really championing this cause. Thank you for that. And this really is about safety. It's not about revenue. We need to continue to remember that. I know Chief Aldridge is not about raising money. We know in government we do not produce anything, right? We produce safety, things of that nature. We do not produce revenue. That's not what we're about. This is about safety. And I've said before, the 3 E's, if you want to reduce traffic collisions, fatalities, it's engineering, enforcement, and education. And this system touches upon all 3. So I want to commend again Councilmember Van Overbeck, Chief Aldridge, for coming up with an excellent plan, and I am going to strongly support this.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Thanks. Yeah, it's true that red light cameras are not going to stop the drunk and the distracted drivers, and we need to do more than just enforcement via the red light cameras. We have a traffic safety crisis in the U.S., especially for pedestrians, people in wheelchairs, people who bike, people pushing strollers, who basically anyone not driving a vehicle. And even people in vehicles are at high risk of getting injured in traffic collisions or dying. So public safety is absolutely our number one concern, and we need to be addressing all angles of this crisis with as many tools as we can use. So I think most of you know, as a transportation planner, I'm an advocate for designing our facilities as safely as possible, proactively, by making sure that our infrastructure is not incentivizing speeding and is not incentivizing distracted driving. But with our intersections that already exist, we need to make sure that we can do whatever we can to get people to stop speeding, to pay attention. And it seems like we ought to give these red light cameras a try if they're not going to negatively impact our city financially or on citizens' privacy, which we've covered before. So I'm willing to support this and see how it goes.
Councilmember Hawley.
Thank you for the recognition, Madam Mayor. I would also like to echo my support of this project, largely because the chief and Faro Mobility have done a substantial amount of quantitative analysis saying, yes, red light cameras do work. We've seen it work before, even if it isn't, a maintained revenue over time. We're still going to be paying to staff this service. That service is leading to that plummet in collisions, that plummet in people running red lights. And I know that we have some leeway for sending warnings when it is like a good faith action that the camera may have picked up, such as running rights through the red light. But at the end of the day, going right on a red light without stopping is against the law and will increase risk of more accidents. So that is something that maybe shouldn't always be a warning and maybe should be a citation sometimes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck.
So, Chief, I really thought you guys did a great job with the RFP. I mean, it was very comprehensive. I've spent a lot of time on this, and you guys covered every single point. And I also would like to recognize Lieutenant Durfee, who I think has taken point in the department on this project. I also wanted to address a couple of things Mr. Jones brought up. The first is the cities that took these things out adopted them with the idea that they would be some sort of revenue gushing machine and sent tickets to people in an automated way and didn't have anybody actually reviewing the videos. So what we found out in researching this is that the successful systems, Reading is a great one because it's a town about our size, it's close by, and I went up there and spent a day with them, and so they have a set of rules. They have people that look at every video. And so, for example, the person that rolls through, makes the left turn in a red and rolls through at 3 miles an hour, they don't give them a ticket because the point of this isn't to play gotcha. It's to keep people from running into each other at stoplights. The chief has hired CSOs who are human beings who can review the videos and make sure, in fact, that this isn't it's a clear-cut violation. So the more I've learned about this, the more I'm convinced if it's done properly, it's a tool. It's like any other tool. If you don't use it properly, it's not going to work out. But I think our police department has a very clear idea how to do this successfully. And thank you for, I think it's been 2 years since we've been working on this, but thank you.
I'd just add, if Reading made $400,000 in a year, I guess we're probably going to make like 6, because I think we have some of the worst drivers around. But what we are dealing with right now is an absolute crisis of what happened when we took major cuts to our police department, and we didn't have a traffic division for 10-ish years, 15 years. So when drivers get used to the fact that there are no cops that are going to give you a ticket, they drive really, really bad. So I hope that we can Pavlov dog this, that once they find out that they are going to get a ticket, that all of a sudden people in Chico will wake up and have a lot better drivers, because I would like to not have one more fatality in our city from any red light being ran. But since nobody else did it, I would make a motion that we approve to go to the next step and send the chief off on his way on red light cameras.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Councilmember Goldstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Hawley.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien.
Yes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck.
Yes.
Councilmember Winslow.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bennett.
Yes.
Mayor Reynolds.
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Okay, with that, we are going to take a break. It will be about 15 minutes, 5 minutes for a break. We're going to finish closed session, and we'll be back in about 15 minutes.
No.
All right, we're back. Sorry, just a couple seconds over, but we are. Anyways, we'll go ahead and start. Item 5.2, feasibility of 1 hour free parking in downtown Chico. Mr. Ottoboni.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. As mentioned, at the February 4th, 2025 City Council meeting, City Council directed staff to analyze the feasibility of a 1 hour free parking concept program within the core downtown parking areas. So tonight I'm going to kind of break this down into 3 sections. First, we're going to start with kind of high-level parking management program objectives. Why do we do these types of things? Then we're going to go into the current operations, and then we'll kind of delve into the analysis that our staff has performed. So first and foremost, parking management objectives. Parking is obviously a huge component of business, patrons to businesses, and so in many ways, the core really main objective of parking management strategies and objectives is to support business functions. I've heard the question, and so I'll answer it or provide context. So why is downtown the only area that has parking meters? That's a great question, and one of the main reasons is throughout town, as new development occurs, depending on that land use, that building or that property is required to provide adequate parking to support that type of land use. In the downtown core, when we have this type of concentration density of buildings, obviously the parcels don't have the footprint for providing parking individually, and so there's kind of a consolidated or concentrated effort to provide parking. So we utilize public, private, different types of parking lots, on-street parking as the means to provide adequate parking for those types of businesses. So in order to create turnover, which is the concept of having patrons constantly having availability of parking nearby those businesses. You'll hear the 85th percentile concept throughout tonight, and anyone that talks about parking management. That idea centers around occupancy of parking. 85th percentile, so if you have above 85% occupancy, you want to deploy different strategies to try and get that, below or around that 85%, which essentially equates to 1 available parking stall per block face. So there's constant turnover, people aren't having to circle the blocks, and you see on the 3rd bullet point, kind of add to congestion. So by having these strategies and that availability of parking, you're reducing that type of traffic congestion. So the 2 main mechanisms we use to create that turnover and manage that is through time limitation. So you see like the 2-hour parking spots, 4-hour, 10-hour, and so on. And then we use rates. So obviously in our downtown core premium area, it's $1 per hour. And in our economy areas outside of that core, where we have less occupancy, we have 50% or 50 cents per hour. The other aspect of why we charge also is obviously there's a cost associated with. We have personnel in multiple departments. We have enforcement through PD. We have the parking management stuff that occurs through the engineering department. And then we have operations and maintenance staff that perform ongoing maintenance of the facilities and infrastructure. So there's a cost associated with the concept is that we want to be cost neutral, if nothing else, so that we're recovering the cost to provide that service. So current program operations, we have 2 main software programs. So for the kiosks and the smart meters, we use the IPS technology. And then obviously we have the Passport app, and so that's a separate software program. From a capacity standpoint, we have 52 time-restricted stalls, so those don't have meters. And then in our economy zones, again, 50 cents per hour. We have 6 parking lots plus the on-street parking areas. That's a total of 865 stalls. And then within that premium core zone at $1 per hour, we have 449 on-street parking stalls. Our 2 parking enforcement officers utilize license plate reader technology as a means to virtually chalk and manage those the enforcement aspect. So here's a map of those parking zones and throughout downtown with the kind of reddish, we'll call it salmon hue, and the core is the premium zone. All right, so third and final component, obviously we'll spend a little bit more time on the staff's analysis, so we're going to break this down into 3 separate components. First is the revenue analysis, enforcement analysis, and then the occupancy/customer experience. So first, the revenue. This table is revenues by zone in the downtown area. Both Passport, so the PP column, and the IPS, so we track those separately and add those cumulative together. So by zone, the revenues associated with each of those zones. As you can see highlighted in red in the middle, the area for consideration, the premium downtown zone equates for 43% of our revenue, which equates to just over $350,000 per year. We'll note that, again, 2024, we had the month-long free parking as well in the downtown for the holiday season. So parking revenue. So as we take a look at revenue, not just on a annual basis, but kind of bigger picture, how's the program functioning? Since 2020, the parking fund has been operating in the red, and so we've been relying on reserve funds to subsidize that essentially and stay solvent within the 853 parking fund. You will see in fiscal year 22 there's a spike in the revenue. It's a little misleading as there was over $1 million transfer from Fund 854, which is the parking reserve fund. So it's not like the revenues from meters and such actually outpace expenses. There's a transfer in from the reserve fund that year. So as staff, when we look at that, we have concern because we have about, I think it's $900,000 in costs or over $1 million in costs per year. And these fund things, again, not just our staff, but other infrastructure and programmatic investments in the downtown core. So here you go. What does parking revenue pay for? We've done annual ADA and pedestrian improvements in downtown. We use those funds for parking lot rehab. We use it to fund the downtown access plan. Portion of it goes to the general plan implementation. Obviously, our infrastructure, the smart meters and kiosks. Portion this funds also the maintenance of Wayne Cook Alley. We've purchased downtown street barriers in years past as a safety protection for Thursday night markets and so on. Fleet replacement for the staff associated, again, parking management operations, and then future parking structures to consider. So based on that, we see the parking program as an enterprise fund, obviously revenues to cover our costs. So based on that analysis, we've identified concerns that if we further reduce the revenues, we're only increasing the potential or likelihood of going into the red and needing a subsidy from another funding source to cover those ongoing costs. The other aspect is it then limits our future opportunities to do maintenance that would then further require other funding sources such as the general fund to pay for those types of improvements. Next is parking enforcement. So we met with our 2 parking enforcement officers. Again, they utilize the license plate reader technology. In our conversations and coordination with them, on average, it's about a 1-hour cycle time by the time they make it back to certain areas. That varies greatly, though, based on those conversations, because they're not just serving the downtown, they serve the South Campus area, Enloe, the Mansion Park area, Valambrosia Way, where we have other parking districts and parking management demands where they get called to service there. Again, they'll stop if they issue a citation, so that time varies greatly. There's no real consistency based on that in terms of the frequency in which they're making it back through an area using that LPR technology. What they've experienced is a misuse of some of the parking in the core area where if someone parks, it's a 2-hour zone, they'll move that car and essentially they cannot be cited because they claim that they left and then came back. so there's no way to prove otherwise that they just simply moved it. So for some of their experiences, that misuse of that system, moving zone to zone or just moving within the same zone still. So what we heard from our enforcement staff was that the city does not have the adequate resources to effectively and consistently enforce a free parking time allotment. There's potential for increased misuse, and extending the grace period to 1 hour would create additional enforcement challenges for them. And lastly, our occupancy and customer experience. Some insights that we have using our software programs is the average stay of customers in the downtown. So you can see the IPS, again, those are the folks using the kiosks or the smart meters. On average in that premium zone is just over an hour, so about an hour and 15 minutes. The Passport app users on average stay about an hour and 25 minutes. And then in the economy lots and zones, again, longer term stays typically, so you're seeing over 2 to 3 hour stays on average in those areas. So again, the 85th percentile from that occupancy consideration. One thing we don't have is a lot of current data that we were able to capture in terms of occupancy. It's a kind of manual process at this point. But again, we utilize that when we can to implement different strategies. Again, the concept of one available parking space per block face. At 85%, there's enough vacant parking spaces to minimize congestion from drivers searching for spaces. And again, we use that 85% as a target. This helps, again, maintain accessibility of parking nearby the businesses that those patrons are looking to go to. So some further insights from our staff analysis is that free parking causes downtown areas to be congested, especially in those areas where you are eliminating some of those concepts, which then leads to typically that circling of the blocks, adding to that congestion and that traffic. The likelihood is that if with a free parking concept, you would likely go beyond that 85th percentile. So then you're, again, having to now implement different strategies. And then from a software standpoint, the Passport app has a convenient way to accommodate a free 1 hour parking implementation. However, the IPS with the kiosks would be really challenging. I think add further confusion to users who interface with that. I know we've heard a lot of concerns from residents on that and businesses in the downtown. So it would not be a real clean and easy and efficient way to navigate that program. I think adding to the frustration of how to navigate that. As a part of this analysis, we've reached out to several other cities, Santa Rosa, Ventura, Santa Barbara, Paso Robles. My main takeaway from this is every city has different challenges and different nuances and variables that factor into their parking issues and demands. And so I think it's important, that we understand what our dynamics are. We're a smaller rural Northern California city. We have the university here. Those are some of our constraints. But some of the common themes in talking to their parking personnel was that there was a severe impact on the revenues associated with free parking. Free parking led to higher occupancy rates and lower turnover, creating challenges for access to businesses. The enforcement capacity was enhanced when you tried to implement these types of programs. And then clear communication consideration was something that we heard over and over again about. If you do this, it's really important to communicate and identify the steps in the process of how it's going to function and work. And then the complexity of free parking. While it seems simple, there's a lot of complexities and nuances to implementing a program such as this. And those are kind of some of the common themes that we heard from some of those other agencies. So in summary, revenue, we see declining and would have concerns with the impacts of that. Again, we're talking in the tune of potentially $300,000 to $400,000 lost revenue that would require a subsidy from a separate source. Enforcement challenges, these are our two enforcement officers that handle all of our parking enforcement in the entire city. And then again, the occupancy and customer experience impact that we identified. That concludes my report, and I'm available for any questions.
All right, Councilmember Winslow.
Do you have anything good to say about the idea?
It's hard from an operational standpoint. As a city staff, I was tasked with providing an analysis from an operational standpoint. Based on that, I don't see a lot of positive outcomes from the city perspective. I know there's a belief and interest from businesses in these types of ventures, and we totally support business. We look at ways to always enhance and provide opportunities for businesses to thrive. I think that's been experienced over the years, especially in downtown with our efforts. This one's just hard to understand how it would work, and I think cause more confusion. And looking at the fiscal aspects, it's hard to support from just purely a fiscal aspect, requiring likely a general fund transfer of several $100,000 per year.
I think that allowing people to run out and run back in, have really high turnover, like short-term usage of parking is really good, but it seems like we don't really have a method of not requiring people to interact with the kiosk or meter or something like that, and really you lose a lot of the benefits that way. Where we do have these 10-minute spots, we had a bunch of them in front of Colliers. We don't have Colliers anymore. But we added a bunch to corners, and I see that as somewhat addressing the issue that there is high turnover, short-term parking that doesn't require any kiosking.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We did add, I believe, a dozen or so 15-minute free parking strategically throughout downtown near businesses that require that type of quick turnover so that patrons could jump out, go in, get their coffee or whatever they need, and then go back out without having to pay at all. And so that was one of the strategies as an initial effort that we looked at doing to enhance that customer experience and parking availability.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Thanks. So I'm wondering if you see other opportunities for better utilizing our downtown parking or for better improving and reducing complexity for the users or for the city. And with that, I also wanted to ask, how is our parking during peak hours? Because my experience is that people definitely are parking downtown, but I don't know in the periphery, in the non-premium zones, if that's always the case.
Yeah, those are great questions. First, I think from our experience, definitely that downtown core premium zone experiences kind of a higher occupancy rate. We definitely see very low occupancy rates, like in the 40s, 50s, 60% in those peripheral areas and in the lots. So again, we've tried to incentivize that by having those at lower rates. And so to answer your first question, second, utilizing best practices in the parking management world is I think best to do. So utilizing those time restrictions and the rates to better disperse the traffic and the parking throughout the downtown. Also, that incentivizes employees or limits employees from wanting to park in those premium zone areas. And so those are typically strategies used to address these types of concerns.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Van Overbeek.
So I read the staff report. By the way, I like your earnest suit. I read the staff report, and I was going to ask you what your grades in math were in college, but my wife said that would be really rude, so I'm not going to do that. But I know they were really good because of what you do for a living. So you said in the staff report that it was going to reduce the parking revenue by 50%. So we're only talking about the 11-block premium zone, right? Wall to Salem, 1st to 4th. That's the only place we're talking about 1 hour free parking.
Right.
Okay. And that zone generates, you said, a little under $350,000 or 43% of the total. So if we charge people we don't charge people for the first hour, but we charge them for the second hour, it seems to me that it would cut that 350 down to 175 because the average person parks there in about an hour and 20 minutes, you said, and they have to buy a full hour even if they're only parking for 20 minutes. So the hit is 175. It's not 300 or 400.
That was not the intent of the staff report. It was applied to 50% in the staff report, 50% of the parking revenue fund, Fund 853. So.
Wait a second, you're telling me that half of the parking revenue would be reduced by half if we do 1 hour free parking in the premium zone?
Well, I have no way of specifically knowing how that's going to play out. That would be an estimate.
Well, let me help you. So,
wait a minute. Let me correct one other point, though.
Yeah.
If you don't have to buy an hour, you can buy less than an hour.
Yep. You have to buy the first hour, right? Don't you buy this in increments of an hour? It's $1?
No.
Okay. So there's $350,000 that comes out of the premium zone. So it can't be more than that. Because that would be 100%.
One of the spillover effects that we would anticipate if you have free parking, and this goes back to the discussion with the enforcement officers, the increase in a misuse or abuse of the system. So employees has always been, and parking in those premium areas has always been an issue in downtown for the 10 years plus I've been here. So if you have free parking in the downtown, the likelihood of having employees now parking in those areas because they're free versus 50 cents per hour in the lots, you're going to get an increase of occupancy. So you're going to increase that amount. And then from the, it's not clean. It's not at 1 hour, you lose 50%. So as I showed, the average stay is in those premium zones about 1 hour and 25 minutes, I think it was.
Right.
So if an hour, if it was clean, as in the best case scenario, an hour out of 1 hour and 20 minutes would actually be 75%. Right, that would be 60 of 80 minutes. But from an enforcement standpoint, that cycle time, the likelihood of people gaming the system and understanding that they know they can stay an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes without getting cited, because the reality is by the time that enforcement officer virtually chalks them could be up to an hour into their park.
Right, but it's an hour cycle. Like I drove that whole 11 blocks, and it took me a little under 7 minutes, right? So what seems to be happening, if it's taken an hour, is you're having these guys drive the whole, the 10-hour zone and the 2-hour zone. I realize they have to stop, write tickets. Sometimes there's some other parking problem, but you have two guys, or two people, or it looks like two men, and presumably they work 5 days a week, 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock, right? So if you had one guy, and given that 43% of the revenue comes from an 11-block area, I would think you'd want to dedicate 43% of their time. I don't want to get into the weeds on this, but they could be cycling through there every 10 minutes, call it 10 minutes instead of 7. 10 minutes matters in a 2-hour zone. It doesn't matter in a 10-hour zone, right? So I think you guys have a very strong and obvious bias against this, and the overriding question is this good for business downtown? That's the main consideration, and hopefully we have some people here from downtown to tell us what they think.
I just met with and reported what the parking enforcement officers said. That I don't control their operations, but so yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I'll just throw out to Councilmember Goldstein a better utilization. I was just in San Diego 2 weeks ago, and they still have all their parklets set up from COVID, and they are rocking it down there. So I just say we turn them on in the parklets and let's have fun. But that's not what we're here talking about tonight. So do we have speakers?
We do. We have 4. And you want to?
All right, 3 minutes each.
Okay. All right. The first speaker is Audrey Taylor, followed by Kelly Lessler.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Audrey Taylor from Chamber of Concepts, and I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of Greg Scott, President of DCBA. And we want to thank the Council for looking into this for the first hour. And as you already know this, that parking is the biggest issue for businesses downtown. We've done a number of discussions with businesses and surveys, and parking continues to be that #1 challenging constraint for businesses downtown. Also, I think the holiday pilot project that you had, which was a pilot to find out whether this worked or not, and it was the first time we did it, and for the businesses, it was a success. We had more business people come downtown, so that was a great thing. So on behalf of DCBA, we would support looking at, the free parking, having the free parking downtown so that we could get more people to come downtown. Understand, the challenges of implementation that, is obvious after reading the staff report that there's a lot of challenges there. And I attended your strategic planning process and was very happy to hear that every council person felt that our beloved downtown was an asset and something that we need to protect. And that downtown is made up of businesses. And so whatever we're looking at, I think DCBA wants to be at the table to say, what are the options that we can have around parking that removes constraints for our businesses so that we can bring more shoppers downtown, more visitors downtown to our businesses. And however we do that, and I think this is a good first step, is having this free parking down there to encourage people to come downtown. We want to be there with you to make sure that we have a very vibrant downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Lesser, followed by Jesse Horgan.
Good evening again. Kelly Lesser, owner of Urban Couture, and I'm here to represent my neighbors on 3rd Street and Broadway that I speak to about this. The 1 hour parking, free parking would be huge to us. I think you have to kind of take into consideration some of the different types of businesses and how it affects them, like, for example, the Watchman, that business, they really only need to run in and change out, like, it's for batteries. They're, the older customers that have the timepieces. You have Cat's Meow that's right next to me that are grandmas and grandpas and moms that are just wanting to run in quickly and then come back out. So I know that that the parking has affected their business. I have a little bit of a younger crowd with what I do, and they're very savvy with their phones and the apps, but it's not like that for everybody. So each individual is having different challenges with that, and I know I hear about it all day long. My average customer is probably about 30 minutes in my store. Sometimes it lasts an hour if it's really, they're really doing a big shop, but on the whole, it's like a 30-minute time for me, an in and out process. So I know that I have felt it financially. I've heard about it. I also think on another thing regarding the kiosks, I think if people had more, like when you work out at the gym and it has like a step-by-step, you do this and then you do this motion. I know there's a lot of confusion, especially with those older people that are challenged. And if there was something on the kiosk itself, giving a little more step-by-step, I think that would be super helpful as well. Listening to you speak about the different challenges, I get that too. But again, back to downtown, we need our merchants to stay in business. And I think that would be a fabulous olive branch to the community, to the business owners. And I think it might be a little challenging, but would love the opportunity for you to look into it a little bit further, So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jesse Horgan, followed by LaDonna Carnegie.
Good evening. Once again, I'm Jesse Horgan. I am the Parking Services Manager for Chico State University. I didn't have very much to add to the report. It was very thorough and impressive, but I did want to provide you with some information that I think might be pertinent to the discussion. So for the university, there's 1,700 general parking spaces, which are open to hourly parkers. Those spaces are full by 10:30 a.m. Monday through Thursday. There are 14,500 full-time equivalent students, of which we have pretty good polling that say 40% of those bring a car to campus. So when you add faculty, staff, visitors, and students, my 1,700 parking spaces have a turnover and need to accommodate 6,000 cars. So right now there's significant spillover into the neighborhoods around. Downtown is not included in that right now because you have the $1 an hour parking. If you were to take away that, put in free parking, you would have students competing with your customers for those parking spaces. This year, we will be upgrading enforcement to come in line with the city. So we'll be adding additional enforcement, additional LPR technology to bring our enforcement up to once an hour to match the city. So I'm adding more enforcement, making it more likely that people need to pay for parking. If you were to go towards a free parking model, you'd be dangling free parking spaces in front of students who have more enforcement in the university. Finally, why do people come downtown? It's not for free parking. I love free parking when it's available. It's not why I come downtown. I come downtown for the businesses. So for me, what's more important is to have the storefronts be full of businesses. So there's tons of things you can do with your existing passport technology. You can offer codes to businesses that they can give their best customers free parking. You can have zones where codes allow employees to park. You can offer different free parking options using the technology rather than making a blanket for everyone. So that makes your downtown vibrant, better investment of the parking funds into better infrastructure, improves it for everyone, businesses, parkers, the public, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker is LaDonna Carnegie.
Hi, thanks for letting me have a chance to speak of this. I kind of took advantage of it because I've wanted to mention to you all that you need to make the numbers for the parking zone bigger so you don't have to walk to them. Number one, as big as that, whatever the largest letter is on there, so they can be seen from several spaces away. I think that the making the 1 hour free downtown, I didn't realize it was just in the premium zone too, so that's just like a magnet to park there. You know, it's going to make people go from the economy zones to that free zone, and it's going to make less turnover and have more parking congestion, I feel like. I feel like maybe there's a way you could do this 1 hour and this as an incentive. Maybe there's a way you could you can get 1 hour free parking if you download the app to encourage people to do the Passport app and learn how to do it. Because once you do it, it's really easy. And you have to use a credit card usually anyway if you go to the kiosks, right? Or does it take cash? I forgot my phone one day and I was just like, oh, these kiosks, you know. So, you know, is there a way you could like give people like the first year on the app free, or a free hour or something, or as an incentive to use the app and then make that more, you know, make it so that people have an incentive to try it and figure out, because it actually does work pretty good. So maybe having a trial. And then from my understanding, you would have to go ahead and sign in with the app. I think you need to like sign in with the app or the kiosk for that 1 free hour anyway, just so you have that record. So I think that data is really necessary. I don't know how that works on the kiosk. It sounds like it's clunkier from what you said, Brandon. And then maybe think about strategically placing the free hour. Maybe you only have a few places. I don't know how that works or not. You know, I know if you're particularly elderly and you have a handicap permit, because I broke my ankle a couple years ago, you can park anywhere for free. So really old people who are getting their hearing aid batteries changed can park wherever. But, you know, is there some way to be, it feels like there's two ways you could do this. One, either by place of where you place the free parking. If it's just in the premium zone, I feel like that's just going to be a mistake because it's going to make it a magnet for everybody. And second can be the method of how, you know, a way that you can incentivize people to use to get the app and use it, and then maybe only have a certain time period or something. And I also think that there was a mentioning one that enhancing the pedestrian environment, and then also more bicycle parking and parklets, and making it so it's more of a destination to come downtown without your car is also a really great incentive. So I think I'm almost out of time, but so, and I think number one I had here, make those signs bigger with the numbers. Thanks.
Thank you. That's it.
All right, thank you. Brendan, I have a quick question. Does the Passport app have the ability to do some sort of a validating type procedure?
At one point we looked into that. I believe there is a capability, but we would have to further explore what the actual logistics of that would look like, how you would get it to actually come through on the app side.
I know we're not San Diego. I'm not trying to compare, but everywhere you go down there, when you park, they're like, hey, do you park in our parking lot? Do you need us to validate you?
Yeah.
You know, so if the downtown in the core had the ability to do some, because if we do free parking, they still have to enter in their information into the kiosk to get the free hour, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all my questions. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go first, but does any other council members have comments? Councilmember Goldstein.
I'll do my spiel. So I hang out downtown a lot, have an office there. I've talked to a lot of business owners, employees, and patrons of downtown businesses about this proposal and about the parking situation in downtown in general. And I've gathered the underlying issue here is the success of small businesses. Free parking is being proposed as an incentive to make sure that people in Chico go downtown for shopping and food and other resources, as opposed to just big box stores elsewhere in town. So I really agree with that sentiment. I just don't think that this is the solution. According to the staff report, if implemented, the 1 hour free parking in this priority zone could have significant negative effects, including cutting our revenue for the Parking Enterprise Fund in half, and that fund is already, it's underfunded. It could reduce turnover and make it even more difficult for short-term visitors to find parking, basically defeating the purpose of this to begin with. And it could increase congestion with more drivers circulating around looking for open spaces, which makes the whole downtown less pleasant. And as mentioned, the Enterprise Fund is already struggling. That fund helps fund things like making it a better pedestrian environment. And it's already hard to find parking downtown. So this hour of free parking in the most desirable parking areas isn't going to fix our problem. I think that we're approaching this backwards by at least looking at the premium zones. We should be looking for ways to incentivize parking in the lesser used areas, like we were talking about the parking garages or lots and areas that are maybe just a couple blocks from businesses. And if we were talking about ways to lower prices to incentivize people to check out those spaces, I'd be more interested. And we could even look into maybe an educational campaign that there are probably spaces in the garage and people could go right there instead of circling around. Just ideas, and I'm really grateful for the ideas that we heard from our audience members too, and from the mayor about parklets, bike parking, walking and biking facilities, and some other really good ideas about how to make sure that employees can park in ways that don't impact our downtown negatively. So beyond this, I just think we need to be looking more broadly at how to get more people to want to be downtown and to make sure that people can access downtown. And I really appreciate the spirit of this again, but I can't support this specific proposal.
Councilmember Hawley.
So we have to remember that the number one issue here is the viability of businesses downtown. It's not maximizing the revenue in the parking fund. That's point number one. Point number two, depending on how this is implemented, if we use the resources we have where we're generating revenue, which is in the premium zone, and we get those people to circulate through there every 10 minutes instead of every hour, that means that we can effectively charge for that, capture the violators, or cite the violators, and put a 1 hour minimum on the add-on after the first hour, right? So that $350,000 becomes $175,000. So it's a $175,000 hit. So the question is, what is the benefit to businesses downtown? And we don't know. We know it's positive because we got some experience from the holiday season. The holiday season's always better, but there was a sense that it was quite good. But the other thing is, I mean, and I wish, I have a huge amount of respect for Mr. Oderbunny, but the staff report was hugely biased against this. And I'll stop there.
I'm going to jump in if I may. So I think Director Ottoboni was providing us with what we asked, which was the financial impact. I don't think necessarily, Tom, it's his job to tell us whether we're supporting downtown or whatever. He really was just doing his job as far as the revenue impact if we went to 1 hour parking. So let me just say that. And you made a very compelling case, Director Ottoboni. Brenda, you really did. But I do agree with Council Member Van Overbeck that this is about our downtown. Our downtown's in crisis. It's in crisis. And yes, this is a singular issue, and we do need a broader approach to the problems that are going on downtown. I agree with you, Councilmember Goldstein, but we do need to find those little things that will help in the meantime. Yes, we have to have a broad plan. We have to look at this very comprehensively, but we just can't ignore our downtown when it's slowly dying before our very eyes. I was in Colliers on Saturday, and no, parking did not kill Colliers. I know that, but we cannot have any impediments to a downtown that is in crisis. And any little thing that we can do to bring some relief to those businesses, because we do not have a downtown without business. Without a business district and businesses downtown, we do not have a downtown. So we have to figure out a way, again, with a broader sense, a more comprehensive sense later on, but in the meantime, find some short-term solutions, at least some things that will help. And I think this does that. I think I'm willing to try it for a while, see where we're at. But we have to do something, and doing nothing is not acceptable.
Councilmember Hawley.
Thank you, Mayor Reynolds. I would say that it's a great thing that we got this agendized. It's a great thing we got our department head to provide us with an excellent feasibility survey, but I think that the evidence is clear both from the survey and from the expertise of our university's parking services manager, who is an expert in this field, that this probably would not help our local businesses. It would hurt our local businesses. I think business owners need to be in the room every single time, giving their feedback and what they think the outcomes will be, but that's not the entire picture. So I am not supporting this, not because I'm not supporting our local businesses. It's because our local businesses aren't parking experts. This is also a sociological phenomenon that needs to have special care when making decisions like this. So even if it weren't economically viable, but would be a solvent parking issue, then I would support it. I don't think that economic viability is the only thing to look at, but the factors of not being economically viable alongside with this would significantly decrease parking turnover. And also, I don't think the holiday is a really good example to pull from, because who's gone during the holidays? Students. Those are what our customers are competing with. But with that being said, I hope we can have more ideas agendized. I hope we can have more ideas, brought to feasibility surveys, so we can just get as many answers as humanly possible and move forward from here.
Councilmember Winslow.
Downtown is still like a really popular place, even though there's stores that are struggling, and I think that's what we see is there is occupancy in this premium area. People do come downtown. If people didn't, then we would have enough parking. We wouldn't have to worry about turnover. And then I kind of imagine maybe we would find ourselves in this survey that we're at this spot where we're really not seeing that blocks are at full occupancy above that 85%. And then we could say, okay, well, we want to incentivize people so we can remove, the need to pay for parking. And then if downtown does a little better, then we run into that problem again. And I imagine if that was the case, and I don't think it is. I think downtown's doing well enough. Enough people want to come down there, or at least the university's doing well enough that we don't have an issue with parking occupancy. If we did set it up for a time period and then things got better and then it was difficult to park downtown, people didn't go because they couldn't find a spot, not because it was inconvenient to pay, then we would want to re-implement paying for parking. And that just sounds really confusing, because I'm even confused just kind of like going over this right now. You still have to check into the kiosk, but you get an hour free. And I'm seeing this out of these other cities that were surveyed, Paso Robles, that free time creates confusion. This is like a key takeaway that they wanted to emphasize. And I'm worried that would be worse. And these kiosks have caused so much confusion. We're still dealing with it like a couple of years after they're implemented. And I think that probably the right path for us now is to try to resolve some of that. Use some of these incentives, and other ideas. Even like the December free parking. I mean, if it worked really well and we have evidence of that and students weren't around, then that's a thing that we can continue to do. But I don't see it making sense in the long run. It will, I think, bite us in the butt down the line if we were to do it.
Does it change this conversation at all if this is a buy one, get one versus first hour free? So, because they have to use the kiosk, and Mr. Van Overbeck said you have to pay for the second hour, does that change the logistics of it? Because I really, really want to support this, and I want to figure out a way to get there on it. I'm just logistically not understanding how we're actually going to be able to do it with the kiosks. Were people complaining about parking before when we had the meters? Is it the fact that they don't want to use? I mean, we've always complained about parking. I know that. That's not what I'm saying. But when you're dropping quarters in the thing right in front of your car, I don't remember the dollar amount being the problem. I feel like the real elephant in the room is the fact that everybody hates these new meters and doesn't want to use them. And it's that. Kelly, is it that I don't want to pay $1 to park, or is it that I don't,
Honestly, what I hear from my customers, again,
Kelly, can you stand up to the mic, please, just because that way it's on the record since I've asked you a question.
Yeah, what I hear from my customers, because I have like high school, college, mom, and grandmas in my store, but I don't get as much pushback. I do hear everybody hates the meters. I personally like them for myself. I find them very convenient. I have the app. I can pay for my Chico State student. If she's parking over there, she calls me. I'm like, sure, boom, it's done, honey. You're good. It's my other neighbors that you hear too, like the Cat's Meow, like the Watchmen. Those folks, you're getting pushback on that. And it was more the meters, to be quite honest with you. But I think that the meters are a good thing too. But yes, that's when all the hullabaloo, started was with those. And you touched on something as far as like, what about getting it validated? What if the store, instead of like I don't know, did you say that the kiosks have that capability? Instead of doing like 1 hour free parking, what if that customer came into that store and that store owner validated 1 free hour? Wouldn't that kind of take away all this other stuff that people are concerned about that's causing other issues? And then it is that customer coming in, receiving that 1 hour for patroning an actual business. That's just a thought.
You stole my thunder, Kelly. That's where I was
sorry.
going next. No, I'm kidding. But anyways, yeah. So thank you for answering the question. I appreciate it. Mr. Onaboni, I'll give you it.
Yeah, based on, again, the analysis that we've seen and what we've observed is the downtown premium area isn't the issue that has a higher occupancy rate. It's the lack of utilization, actually, of the peripheral economy zones. And so doing 1 hour free parking seems kind of counterintuitive in that core area when there's not a lot of availability there. And I think there was a great point brought up by Jesse is the likelihood is you're going to see a significant misuse and abuse of that by students now utilizing that and not having to pay for it, and they're going to go to their one class and then they're going to leave, and they're taking up those valuable parking spots in that premium area that are closest to businesses. And so I think that was the intent of our staff report, is to highlight those concerns that from our perspective and what we've seen and observed and engaged on, we see it as actually a detriment or a negative impact to businesses of this type of program that we're asked to assess.
So maybe this needs a little more work. I think kind of what I'm hearing everyone say, and I hate to do this again, I'm falling on the sword all the time with internal affairs, but maybe this needs to go back to our internal affairs and really look at this a little more comprehensively and find some compromise, because I think these are all valid concerns that people are bringing up. I don't think we have a finished product right now, and I think we need to do some fine tuning.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Mr. Vanover.
So this is about marketing. So people always complaining about parking downtown. So 1 hour free parking brings people downtown. They come downtown, and the core area is fully parked up, right? If it's after 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the morning. So what are they going to do? They're going to drive a couple blocks to the economy zone where there is space, and they're going to park there, right? So sure, downtown is parked up in that 11 block area in the peak business hour. So it's about 11 o'clock to 5:30 or so. But they're still going to be down there, and they'll end up parking the economy zone. The second point I make, and I hadn't talked to you about this, Brendan, but we have, if we change the way we deploy, and this is a police matter, but change the way we deploy the enforcement so that they're concentrated on the core area. We spend more time in the core area, less time in the economy area, and they can drive by more quickly. It means, I don't know why we couldn't do this, where we say you don't need to deal with the kiosk or the app until you're parking for the second hour. For the first hour, you've got a car with a camera and a license plate reader. He drives by, takes a picture of your license plate, and if it's there an hour later, you get a ticket, or an hour and 1 minute later, you get a ticket, right? I don't know why that's not feasible, but I think there's a way to get around using the kiosk for that first hour.
Okay, so I'm going to use a line that somebody who used to be up here for a long time said, that we set policy and our staff operationalizes stuff. So if what you're saying is true and that can't be done, it can be done, I think that sending it back to internal affairs is a great idea, and maybe we can have Sergeant Lefkowitz come in and tell us how he deploys the traffic division and maintains
Well, I talked to him
that.
about it this morning.
Okay, but the rest of us
send it
didn't.
back to internal affairs is fine.
Yeah, I want to continue the conversation, and I want
Yes.
to get this there, so if you would make yours a motion, I would second that.
I will make that a motion to send this issue to internal affairs for further
I'll
discussion.
second that.
Councilmember Goldstein?
Aye.
Councilmember Hawley?
Because I don't want to take any more staff time on this issue, and I want to implore us to agendize more different ideas, no.
Okay. Councilmember O'Brien?
Yes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck?
Yes.
Councilmember Winslow?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
Yes.
Mayor Reynolds?
Aye.
Carries 6-1.
How long's in ground floor office space going to take? Who's taking that? Is that coming back from you, Mike?
I think it could go.
Knock it out quick? All right, let's do it.
All right.
5.3, Internal Affairs Committee Recommendation Amendments to 19.44.010 Ground Floor Office Space Lease.
So another idea, my esteemed Councilmember Van Overbeck sent off to Internal Affairs. I do appreciate that. In all seriousness, this, I think, is an important conversation. Again, I just said a few minutes ago that downtown was in crisis. And really the purpose of this particular issue was to consider alternative appealing pedestrian zone uses. Brenda, is that the proper planning term? Appealing pedestrian zone uses, is that good? Thank you. In our downtown north area specifically, with the overall objective of finding compatible uses for some of our vacant buildings, Principal Planner Mike Sully provided an excellent presentation and options for internal affairs to consider. I'm sad to see that Mike had left. I was going to compliment him on his presentation. And the specific discussion centered on whether to allow ground floor office space in our downtown north area. After discussing that issue in IA, we voted 3-0 to approve Vice Mayor Bennett's motion with a friendly amendment to recommend to the full council to amend the municipal code to allow ground floor office space in downtown north for a period of 1 year. And I will allow my other colleagues who are on that particular committee to chime in and see if I missed anything.
No, you did not.
Although I would clarify, it wasn't to amend the municipal code, it was just to allow for 1 year. We don't need to go do code amendments. It's kind of to just per.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Brendan.
I think the intention was to leave a lot of discretion towards staff. Well, we had said, it was Vice Mayor Bennett's suggestion to not allow these on Main Street, Broadway, just look at the number streets, which is trying to get like less. Yeah, it was, I mean, yeah, I don't know if you want to chime in on like the intention of that. We're trying to avoid like the big anchor spots become tied up in office in a way that actually in the long run does not create an appealing pedestrian environment, right?
And just to clarify, it's not administratively approved, it's an administrative use permit. We still do a notice to the adjacent property owners. Somebody could appeal that. There's a process, there are some findings made. It's just a very reduced level, much more reduced cost, I think something around $1,600. So there still is a process. It's just greatly reduced. And
right. Yeah, and there's not the absence of any barriers, anything happening, but we're saying we'll invite some proposals for better utilization of downtown space.
All right, anybody else before we go to, oh, that's okay, before we go to speakers? No, all right, do we have any speakers? All right, 3 minutes.
Okay. Carrie Welch.
Good evening, Carrie Welch. I'm a commercial real estate broker, and I'm really appreciative that you guys are taking a look at this today. And my request is simple. I would like to extend it to more than a year if possible. I think the administrative review is a great solution. I don't have a ton of people flooding downtown saying, hey, I'd like to have an office. But personally, if somebody comes down to me and says, I would want to be downtown, I want to be like, how wide of a red carpet do you want? Not that, hey, it's going to cost you 10 grand. So if maybe we could have more than a year, because a year flies by, it feels like it was just February. It is now April 1st, and I would like to be successful and show you that you can do an administrative review, that we can keep a robust retail downtown, but also allow office to allow more pedestrians, less vacancy, all the stuff that I think we all know is very important. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Van Overbeck.
So I want to thank members of Internal Affairs for approving this for a year and moving it forward. The argument against this is that somehow magically retail is going to come back. The retail has been in decline, unfortunately, for at least a decade, and it's an important component in downtown, but it is going to be a reduced factor in our downtown commercial environment. It's just a fact of life, and it's true everywhere. It's not just Chico. So the question isn't, do we want office or retail? The question is, do we want vacant buildings or office? Because right now we've got a bunch of vacant buildings. And the other point I would make is the problem with the year, to echo Ms. Welch's point, is it doesn't allow for planning. Let's say your Addison is going to buy the Colliers building and is sitting down with his partners trying to figure out what he's going to do, and they're going to put office in the ground floor. Well, it takes a year just to get the architect and the various things. These things take a long time, so a year is nothing. The council always has the ability, if it decides it made a wrong decision, to undo it. But when you say we're only going to do it for a year, it says, A, we're not really sure we want to do this, and B, it sends a signal to anybody who wants to buy a building and plan for its development that they might get left hung out to dry. So I would like to see us approve this without a time limit, with the understanding we can unwind it anytime we decide to, as long as anybody who has put in an application for a permit can be honored, that permit can be honored if it's approved.
So I'm going to, and I appreciate that, Tom, and I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I would like to hear from our director.
My understanding was from the conversation, and when I wasn't in attendance, was that there was a lot of understanding about the importance of having that active, engaged kind of uses of the ground floor. And so this was a little kind of like, is there interest? And that staff would come back in a year and share, had we seen anything, back to council, at which point it could be extended. That was how I understood it from Mike, that it wasn't just a year and then it's over and no more opportunities, but that we'd report back if there had been any interest in that use. Again, one of the things we've always shared about offices in the downtown is who wants to do that? It's hard for we're talking about parking right now. It's hard for your employees to park. It's hard for your clients to come to you. It really is supposed to be our most active and engaged, pedestrian engaged retail, restaurants, bars, art galleries, theaters. But so it wasn't that after a year the gates closed as we would come back.
And I like that. I would be willing to support that. Keep it open-ended, like you said, Tom, but let's have a review after 1 year.
Councilmember Bennett?
Yes. Can we, is that a motion?
I will make that
Early
motion.
for that, Mayor.
I will make that a motion.
We had one.
So I'd like to have a friendly amendment, which would add that, and maybe this is already true, Brendan, but if you have applied for a permit for office on the ground floor, when that year is up and we decide not to go forward, that the city would honor that so you could build that out.
I would agree with that as well. I'll accept that friendly amendment.
Thank you.
That's how we function.
You do that anyhow?
Correct. And at this point, we're talking about a planning entitlement. So if you got your admin use permit, it's a much shortened time frame. It's done administratively. There's a small noticing to adjacent property owners. The process that takes longer, Tom, that I think you're reflecting is getting a building permit. But once you have your planning permit, the building permit is just perfunctory and as ministerial. It's not, just non-discretionary.
Okay. One further question for you. What would be the process if somebody were to appeal one of these? Like they feel like I heard from a business owner who owns the building that she was concerned that an empty site nearby, if that was taken up by an office, then they would never get that kind of co-benefit of that being an active restaurant that brings a lot of people down there. And so she would lose business as a result. So if she were to appeal, if there's a bad proposal for the use of that building, what would be the process?
Probably end up right here, but the notion is there would, we don't do as big of a broadcast for an administrative use permit. It's smaller, so it's usually the adjacent. Knowing downtown,
300 feet, 500 feet, something like that.
No, it's literally the adjacent property owners.
Okay.
For the admin. That's the reduced cost. But the way the downtown works, I'm sure people would know about it. Again, we're acknowledging that it's an allowed use based on this council direction. So they'd have the benefit of the investment in something that we've suggested is allowed, unless there was some extenuating circumstances that it was somehow, couldn't make findings that it's a good active use of a vacant building. So it could end up here, like almost anything can end up here.
Yeah. And anybody has the right to appeal? That's not just the adjacent property owners who are noticed?
They would have to have some standing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I would defer to John.
In any other local business, if they felt like it was going to negatively impact their block or something, they could.
Correct.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so we have a motion and a second.
And so was there a need, based on what staff said, for the friendly amendment? Because it was clear that that was a friendly amendment, that if someone applied for a permit on the ground floor when that year is up and the work is not completed, that the city would still honor that permit. Staff indicated that automatically happens.
True, but you can include it if it makes it clear for everybody.
So and then who was the second? There wasn't a second.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Oh, thought he did.
Okay, just a moment. All right. Councilmember Goldstein?
Aye.
Councilmember Hawley?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien?
Yes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck?
Yes.
Councilmember Winslow?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
Yes.
Mayor Reynolds?
Yes.
Carries 7-0.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Come back and finish up. All right, we are all here, back ready to go, and we're alone, almost, except for Evan. 5.4, Internal Affairs Committee recommendation, tenant protection. Mr. Councilmember O'Brien, are you taking this one?
I do have that one as well.
All right.
So at our meeting of the March 3rd, 2025, the committee received an update on the changes made to the city's website regarding additional resources for tenants and discussed tenant protections. Discussion was held by the committee. It is being noted for the record that a substitute motion was made by Councilmember Winslow to direct staff to research and create an ordinance modeled on the Fresno-Modesto ordinances to create a rental inspection program. That motion failed due to a lack of a second. As mentioned, we did have a robust discussion about this, and the recommendation to council on a 3-0 vote was to enhance the education efforts regarding tenant rights on all city social media platforms, websites, et cetera, as well as to seek city outreach efforts with community organizations on these issues. And I'll throw in my 2 cents. I believe California has some of the most robust tenant protection laws in the country. New laws are not required. But I do agree that getting information to both tenants and landlords on these laws and protections are beneficial. There are bad tenants, there are bad landlords. I think the majority are good on both sides. But getting information in the hands of both tenants and landlords, I think, is a beneficial thing, and that was our recommendation to full council.
Any questions for,
Councilmember
Winslow, go
throw
ahead.
in. Yeah, we had a good discussion. I mean, I appreciate people entertaining this and us having all this go on. I think that some of the direction there with making sure that we are doing our due diligence to make sure that people in our community have access to that information for what laws do exist and protect them. There's certainly some philosophical differences among us on the council in regards to what the city's responsibility towards protecting tenants in these situations where people are taken advantage of by landlords. And that's okay. Maybe I'd give a speech about it, but there's nobody here. So it's good that we're having some attention on this.
Councilmember Van Overbeck?
Well, I'm a landlord who's been taken advantage of by tenants, so, you know, as Councilmember O'Brien said, no, literally, it goes both ways. It goes, they're good and bad people on both sides, and that's just humanity. But I do think it's a great idea that we publicize the contacts in the city for tenants that have a problem that can't resolve them with their landlords, and so I support this.
Yeah, I'll just add, that sounds great. In the past, a lot of people asked me for my help providing resources of where to go to find legal help, things like that, or just basic information about their rights as tenants. And so having things in a central place for people to access is a great thing for our city to help with.
Move to approve.
Seconded.
We didn't even ask for public comment.
Do we have any? I don't see any speakers.
We don't have any.
In case there's somebody hanging outside that wanted to speak. All right, we got a motion and a second.
And who was the second?
Me.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. All right. Councilmember Goldstein?
Aye.
Councilmember Hawley?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien?
Yes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck?
Yes.
Councilmember Winslow?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
Yes.
Mayor Reynolds?
Yes.
Carries 7-0.
All right, 5.5, Councilmember Van Overbeck's request Bidwell Park 20-year plan. Councilmember Van Overbeck.
Yeah, so I think we all recognize the value of Bidwell Park to the community. We have a number of things moving around. There's a Headway Transportation report. Public Works has some great projects envisioned. And really, this is not a request to ask the Butte Park and Playground Commission to supplant or rewrite the 2008 Master Management Plan, but it's to add a layer so that we can clarify all the things that are on the table, when they're going to happen, so we can deal with budgeting to make them happen. And Mr. Gustafson and I had a meeting with Addison Winslow. Addison was there, and two members of the Butte Park and Playground Commission explained to them what our goal was, and they were on board. I think that's a fair characterization. And so my request is merely that we put this on their agenda and let them figure out how they're going to deal with it, which is to generate a 20-year roadmap incorporating the existing master, the Bidwell Park Master Management Plan, Headway Report, and the things that Public Works already has teed up, so that we have everybody's on the same page.
The way I saw it too was more like ranking a list of priorities and getting the public and the commission involved in deciding out of all these things that we can do to improve the park, maintain it. Like what are we going to focus on for our funding requests and such.
May I speak?
Vice Mayor Bennett.
We're supposed to do that. So, and this is just the commission? You're not going to have ad hoc groups and the public and everybody else coming in?
Well, just the commission. They may decide they want to do some public workshops, but I want to hand it to the commission and say, what do you want to do? Right now, what they do, well, you know what they do. I mean, they approve permits for salsa dancing contests and mountain bike races, and the staff can do that. So I'd like them to do something more meaningful and think about what do we want this place to be in 20 years, Bidwell Park.
I feel like that's all right.
So may I ask that they consider also our request to have a partnership between CARD and the city be included in that evaluation as well, as that's obviously a major piece of this?
Well, so I'm nervous about putting another variable into the equation, and I think if I can ask that we figure out what the relationship is with CARD and then tackle it with them at that point.
As long as they're able to pivot, because obviously that's going to change those dynamics, that's perfectly fine, but that can change that entire dynamic for sure.
Right.
Sounds like those things could land on the same agenda because we already they're going to have that discussion, right?
Mr. Gustafson, can you explain to me maybe a little bit more how you think this might work? When I was assigning who my park commissioner was, I wasn't picking somebody that I thought had was going to be doing a 20-year plan for the park, and that feels almost more like a council level discussion and not park. So maybe you can describe a little bit about it?
Sure. Yeah, Mayor Reynolds, I think we had a nice, robust discussion yesterday, and I think we kind of landed on what we're after in the short term is really a project list initiative. There's a lot of items identified in the master management plan, but also a lot of items that we've identified as staff that, projects we want to accomplish in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Most recently, there's a big infrastructure push with the reconstruction of both South Park Drive and Peterson Memorial Drive. We have plans to redesign 1 Mile Pool, add some parking features. There's a master plan to bring in new features for Caper Acres. So items along those lines that we want to just align, make sure the Park Commission is aware and prioritizing. We could make a list that's, again, I'm going to call it a project initiative list. I think we also want to be cautious on, a full-fledged master management plan update. It took 5 years prior. A lot of work was done in the early 2000s on that. I think my colleague on the planning side, Mr. Vieg, was heavily involved in that. It was completed and approved in 2008, had a large component for Peregrine Point, but it was hundreds of thousands of dollars in cost to do that. Are there some items or some components of that plan that need to be revisited and updated? Likely, and I think we kind of landed on maybe 2 parallel tracks of a short-term, again, in projects initiative list that we could all agree on, and then also maybe have the Park Commission analyze certain sections of that master management plan over the course of the next year, maybe year and a half, and determine if that particular section needs to be updated. And if it does, then we keep that ongoing list, and maybe a year and a half, 2 years from now, then we go forward and consider a master management plan update, but focused on those sections that the Bidwell Park and Playground Commission thinks that need to be updated.
And essentially, this is bringing a report back to council of recommendations that would ultimately be done.
Correct.
Approved by all of us.
One of my concerns was being respectful of staff time and not taking up too much of your time, because I know you've got a lot to do. And hurry up and get it done. So I just want to make sure. Yes, sir?
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to make one point, but go ahead.
So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, as to the talking with CARD about taking over some of the parks, such as Depot, the Plaza, Comanche Creek, Tykert, 9th and Hazel, those are outside of the Bidwell Park and Playground master plan, or the Bidwell Park master plan. So just to clarify that.
All right, so do we have any speakers? All right. Consider a motion.
Move to approve.
Second?
Okay, Councilmember Goldstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Hawley.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien.
Yes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck.
Yes.
Councilmember Winslow.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett.
Yes.
Mayor Reynolds.
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
We have nothing posted after the agenda. Reports and communications. The following reports and communication items are provided for council's information. No action can be taken on items under this section unless the council agrees to include it on a subsequent agenda. City manager's report?
No report.
All right. Development fee. Councilmember requests. Pursuant to APMP 1010, council members may verbally request an item to be agendized at a future meeting. After stating what the item would be, the majority of council is needed in order for staff to agendize. Do we have any council member requests?
I have one.
Councilmember Van Overbeek?
And I haven't talked to my colleague, Mr. Winslow, about this, but I would like to put on the agenda that the Growth and Community Development Committee report at the May 1st council meeting. I think we're close enough to do that.
Okay, yeah, I thought we would just do that anyway, but we can set that up.
Well, I think we need to have it on the agenda, right?
Yeah.
You don't need a motion for that or
We don't.
anything.
Okay.
We're just bringing
Yeah.
the report back.
When we're done, which, yeah, but May 1st, is that what it is? No, that's another.
Well, if we get done by the 15th, but I think May 1st is more
Oh,
realistic.
I mean, this is the 1st, and we have another meeting on the 1st next month?
No, it's the first Tuesday. I don't know
Well,
what
it's the 6th, I'm sorry.
The 6th,
It's May
okay, all right,
6th,
that's
yeah.
all.
All right, Councilmember Winslow.
Yeah, there's two. So one, given this whole conversation about the housing and the airport, I just think having a discussion on the airport overlay zones and housing needs would be a good idea. It's a motion, yeah.
I'll second that.
You're wanting to talk strictly about the airport overlay zone?
Yeah, the B2 overlay, the density limitations, how that, this plan that was formed back in the day that limits housing in all these areas, and whether there's something that can change that.
Gotcha.
Okay, I'm just second. All right.
I'll second that, if that's a second.
I already did.
Oh, okay.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Hawley.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien.
Willing to have that conversation, yes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck.
Yes.
Councilmember Winslow.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett.
Yes.
Mayor Reynolds.
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Councilmember Winslow.
One more. Would like to have some discussions about street safety improvements in the Chico High, Chico State area, West Sacramento, Warner, and have a discussion on some of the things we could do there.
I'll second that.
And
Are you limiting it to only those areas?
Well, I can say like from the West Aves, West Ave street safety, but there's those streets that I have in mind, West Deck and Warner. We can talk a little more broadly if you want.
Well, I think if there's an area of change, if we're going to talk about, yeah.
Okay, yeah, say West Ave street safety, yeah.
okay. All right, there was a motion and a second. So Councilmember Goldstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Hawley.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien.
Yes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck.
Yes.
Councilmember Winslow.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett.
Yes.
Mayor Reynolds.
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
All right, so we are going to adjourn to our April 15th meeting, but I'm going to let Councilmember O'Brien adjourn tonight because he would like to.
Thank you, Mayor Reynolds and fellow council members. I requested that we adjourn this meeting in memory of Marysville police officer Osmar Rodarte, who was tragically killed last Wednesday serving his community and actually our region. I want us to honor his sacrifice. He was 27 years old. We need to honor that. Thank you.